I got this subscriber thing going on. Every time I click this scene, it comes up. Anyway, welcome, 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 one and all, to yet another episode of Wick TV. It's a cross ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Today, we ask a very important question, ladies and gentlemen. Women, what are they? And more importantly, perhaps, what should we do about them? We got some woman knowers in our
Hell yeah.
uh, server today who've asked me to moderate a debate between them on what is a woman. So I am going to do just that. We have Hunter here and we have Lactoid. And I'm going to give the mic first to Hunter. Give people your spiel, tell people who you are, what you do, why we should listen to you, and your opening thoughts. Let's just take it away, boys. Go ahead, Hunter.
Okay. I'm Hunter Kozak. You can follow me anywhere. I have a long opening, so I apologize, but I'm gonna just get started. There's a reason I chose to have this debate with someone like Lactoid, and also why I chose to have this debate years after the question has died down. Lactoid is someone who I've had conversations about categories with, and I'm having a conversation with him in particular because he is not a naive essentialist who mistakes maps for blueprints. He seems to recognize intuitively linguistic theories like prototypes, family resemblances, and language games. He seems to recognize that language and categorization is fluid and constructed. It's been 4 years since the Matt Walsh documentary, and I'm attempting to have this conversation now because 4 years ago it was rather difficult to be good faith and not be labeled a transphobe. This is because I will not clutch firmly to the definition of self ID. Instead, demanding a single universal essence for women is itself a category mistake. The question, what is a woman, is very often equivocating several different questions and collapsing them into one. I think it's important we strip these down into different questions. So, first, one, what determines which people are women? Two, how do people think they use the word women and other categories? Three, how do we typically organize objects into categories? Four, do we treat the category of woman as different from other categories? Five, are there different definitions of women? If so, what are they and which should we use? Six, is the SRY gene or biological sex operationalizable and coherent definition? Seven, is the SRY gene a useful or good definition? Eight, what do I think the best definition of a woman is? Nine, does self ID create a circular definition? Is it a valid, consistent, useful, or good definition? 10. Who should institutions legally recognize as women? 11. How should we as a society recognize and treat women? 12. What should medical institutions do about gender dysphoria? That was a lot. I apologize. I will say, and we're going to break this down a little bit more. I will say that one of the answers to this question is still self ID, and I will also say that some of these questions I'll knowingly and admittedly avoid. Some of my answers to these questions might piss off trans activists, but I hope that with a full understanding of what I believe, I will be understood as an ally. The reason there are so many misunderstandings regarding this question is that we often entangle metaphysics, semantics, and pragmatism. I'm a constructivist, descriptivist, and consequentialist. That means I firmly believe that society cannot be wrong about a category, as it was socially constructed. When it comes to any category, there is no right or wrong. Rather, there is only a better or worse, and that the question of trans people being their preferred gender is not an ontological one, but a pragmatic one. I will hope to point out that converging sex and gender together might be perfectly valid, but it is hopelessly unhelpful and unenforceable. It is also completely antithetical to how people actually use gender in their lives, and so is quite a tough ask. But such is the conservative plight. They must frame everything they do as common sense, while advocating for policies that are antithetical to how we as a society have always organized themselves. I also want to clarify, I have a degree in philosophy of language, and I'm getting my master's in linguistics, and I'll be citing linguists like Cameron, Lakoff, Roche, Rorty, and Wittgenstein, and citing studies or theories of theirs. I hope that I don't come across as pretentious. I will try to dial down this conversation. I'm mostly citing these people for the viewers who want to do further reading. I hope to be earnest and good faith, and I hope you to be the same. That was it.
Okay, that was a lot,
That
and I'm
was a
sure
lot.
we're
I
gonna get into it.
apologize.
All 12 points,
I
gang.
know.
I hope you guys were taking notes. I sure wasn't. No, but thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Um, and just to remind you before I let Lecto go, if you guys have questions for either of these young gentlemen, super chat them and I'll ask them as we can. Lactoid, take it away.
Hi, I'm Lactoid. You can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. So I appreciate the nice things that Hunter said about me. I also have nice things to say about Hunter. He's a good guy. Yeah, maybe he might sound pretentious. I don't know. I'm going to sound pretentious. I have a doctorate in law, and I also thus have experience with working through language that is unnecessarily complicated and sometimes constructed to mean something that it might not seem to mean. Um, and And so, I also want to say, I know I'm not supposed to, really go in full response, and there's no way I wrote down everything you said, by the
No,
way. I
that's
got like
fine.
a couple
Totally
points
fair.
of that 12
No,
points.
no, no, for sure.
So you're going to have to go over them with me during this discussion. But you're right in that I think that there is a sort of common sense application that is very functional within society that conservatives often appeal to. And although I'm going to use that common sense as a argument in the sense of utility, I also understand that I'm here in a discussion about uh, the ontology of a particular word, and so I'm not going to simply appeal to common sense in this debate as a tactic against you directly. Um, I'm going to appeal to it for a different reason. Now, my definition of woman, and a little bit more background on this. There's been a couple subjects that I kind of go back and forth on. This is a subject that, for a long time, I probably would have been much closer to Hunter than I am now. But there was a couple of debates that I watched and a couple of discussions that I had with some people where I started just asking these questions, and I didn't get really good answers, I think. And there's some logical trees going down that I think kind of led me to my current position. Maybe Hunter, you can talk me out of it. But my current position, which is that the definition of a woman here is an adult biological female person, which is very specifically defined as a specific individual member of the species Homo sapiens sapiens with an absence of a Y chromosome as their sex chromosome, such as XX chromosomes as their sex chromosomes, as opposed to XY. The reasons for this is that I think this definition has by far the fewest contradictions. It is the most globally accepted, which you sort of, I think, categorize as common sense. But I think that is actually, as you think you are a self-described utilitarian that you just
Mhm.
said, I think that global acceptance and people seeing it as reasonable and common sense is important for the usage of the term, and thus provides more utility in terms of social interaction and the actual purpose of sex distinctions. And so, yeah, I just have a couple. I got some things written down, I guess, to ask, but um, a lot of it's going to be responses. So, Hunter, I mean, why don't you just go ahead and explain why, when I see a woman, and I think when most people see a woman, the assumption is, well, that's just a biological female. Why is that incorrect?
Yeah, should we just move into the general
Yeah,
discussion?
go ahead.
Okay, cool. I'll just answer that question. So, yeah, I would obviously concede that, largely speaking, the biology of a woman maps onto like the heuristics that we use when we recognize them. I think that you would also have to concede, though, that that isn't always the case, right? Like that sometimes you're essentially getting it wrong.
You can misidentify biological realities, yes.
Okay, okay. So I guess my question is, if you recognize that there are blurry, do you recognize that there are blurry boundaries between XY chromosomes? Like there are going to be DSDs, and that those make up about 2% of the population.
I think that there are, so in my research before this, it was
Mhm.
significantly less than 2%.
Yeah, could I clarify
But
that number?
sure.
Okay, because it is kind of true that um, the amount of DSDs that exist in the population is sort of contested, but I think that largely speaks more to my point. 2% of people have a DSD, but only
Just for my audience's sake,
yeah,
DSD. You're gonna have
is a
to
disorder
tell
of
us what.
disorder of sex development. So it's essentially
Gotcha.
intersex.
Yeah,
It's the current
fair enough.
good term to use. Other
Just
than
wanted to make sure
no, 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 that's
that
fine.
everyone knew, especially me, because
No,
who
no, no,
didn't?
sure.
Go ahead.
Intersex, yeah. I'll say intersex, but even though the technical term is DSD, 2% of the population is intersex. However, those 2% in company of people like a friend of mine. I have a friend named Anna who, when she was 22 years old, she had abdominal pain. She's a woman. She has you would look at her. She's phenotypically female. You would see her. She's got, for all intents and purposes, she is a woman. However, she went to a doctor. They did X-rays on her chest. They found out essentially that she has a DSD. She has Turner syndrome, which means that she has an X chromosome, and she has essentially gonads in her like internally. There is blurriness to any of these biological categories as well that are sort of different to the way that we socially recognize people.
Okay, just to be clear,
Hmm.
and just because so my understanding is Turner syndrome is not the presence of a Y chromosome. It's the absence of one of the X chromosomes. So it's X
Hmm.
blank.
I can.
So and going back to and just to be clear, going back to my
Mhm.
definition, member of the species Homo sapiens sapiens with the absence of a Y chromosome. So under this definition, this would still be a woman because you have an X but no Y.
Sure. Then I would point to someone like Swyer syndrome, which has the SRY gene present, but is typical female phenotype.
You're
So
talking about so like androgen insensitivity.
yeah, there's a
Yeah,
so I guess
this is a man.
here's my point. Whenever we categorize things, um, we are not using these biological definitions, right? That this is essentially something that we've mapped onto later. We're always checking this against the way that we use language. There's a kind of a classic philosophical argument. Um, I don't know if have you ever heard the story of Diogenes and Plato with like the what is a man?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Featherless
yeah,
by
yeah. Featherless.
yeah.
So Plato says,
behold a man.
"Behold a man." Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'll clarify for the audience. Sorry. Um, Plato is basically like every definition has necessary and sufficient conditions, and they go, okay, so what's a man? And he goes, a featherless biped. Diogenes comes in with a chicken, and it's plucked, and he throws it in front of Plato, and he goes, behold, Plato's man. My question is, why doesn't Plato go, oh yeah, fuck, duh. I just called this a man. We all know this is a man. You just pointed us to a man. Like, why does he reject that this is a man, and thus the definition might be wrong? Does that
Yeah,
make
because I
sense?
don't think that's yeah. I don't think that's his
Like, what are
actual
we checking
definition.
this against?
I think that what that is an attempt to have a comprehensive definition that's imperfect and like easily defeatable with an exception,
But what
like
are
a
we?
very obvious
No, no,
exception.
no, 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 no. Sure, this exception, but why aren't we just integrating that exception? What are we checking this against? I do have an answer, so I can just give my answer if you'd like. But I do think the answer is just usage. It's just
I mean,
how because we
yeah,
don't
yeah. I
call the
mean,
chicken man.
in other words, common sense, right?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
But I would really point to I would say usage is the way that I would refer to it. That's how meaning is constructed through usage. My issue with creating this sort of like biological definition is we're always checking these biological definitions against usage and we're sort of creating this middleman. It's almost like we're standing on a mountain. We've created a map for the mountain and then we've like almost forgotten that the map was just made to describe the mountain, not to, like prescribe how the mountain is. So it seems like we've reconstructed these definitions. Sorry, are you a little bit lost? I don't know if that made
No, I
sense.
guess what I'm trying to explain. Like, okay, so I understand that there's going to be correlations between the general and some kind of like underlying definition that we use and the general characteristic that that thing is going to express itself with. But this is true for all taxonomic categories. You would agree that we would say, okay, we would define a human as Homo sapiens sapiens. Um, but but there's going to be certain humans
Like
potentially that are going to
libertarians.
be, yeah, like libertarians. They're going to be like distinct, I suppose. But that doesn't defeat the definition.
Wait, sorry.
We just
I'm
simply
maybe I don't get that. What do you mean? What do you mean? Sorry, I don't know if I got the libertarian joke. What?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, 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 no. I don't. What do you mean? Sorry,
well,
humans
here let's
are
start with
Homo
this.
sapiens
I was
sapiens.
just I was calling them
Sure.
less than human.
Yeah,
It was
I got that,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
then you said that there were actual exceptions to that rule.
Right. So you would agree that a human is a Homo sapiens sapiens, right?
Sure.
Okay. And so if I demonstrate to you an organism that fits within the taxonomic category of Homo sapiens sapiens
Hmm.
based on their genetic code and their biology, you would identify that as a human.
So the issue here, I hate to already sort of
Well,
contradict.
hold on. But just be.
Sure,
Is
I
there
would
like
probably, I would
okay?
almost certainly do so. Yeah.
If I remove the legs of that human and the arms of that human and the head of that human and
Hmm.
replace it all with like robotic, I mean not the head, but
Hmm.
the arms and the legs and the torso and everything, and replace it all with like some kind of tire tracks and like machines and everything, to the point where now this is like very different, I suppose, and operates differently than we normally understand a human to be. We would still categorize this as a human.
Yeah, but I would also probably invoke prototype theory and say that they're probably less of a human though, because it doesn't really fit. It doesn't map onto perfectly our prototypical idea of what a human
Less
is.
of
Hold on. I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So if a veteran loses his legs in combat and is
exactly.
replaced by
Mhm.
prosthetics, are they less than human?
No, I don't. Well, it depends if we're treating them if we're treating them in a substantially different way than we're treating all other humans, then yes.
Veterans do
but
get
I don't think
special
we do.
status and get treated in a very different way than most humans.
No,
yes.
no. This specific individual for losing his leg, and I don't think we really do. I don't think we're really treating them. They don't
We
operate
treat
in a
people with
different
missing legs
function.
very differently.
No. Like in terms of like their societal role that they exist in society, I think that they're largely okay. Hold on.
What does that mean?
Okay, I'm describing. Okay, let's look at someone like fucking General Grievous. Okay, I don't know if you're up on your Star Wars knowledge, but that's technically a human. Okay, he's got like a heart, and
It's an alien. It's not a human.
I think it's a humanoid. But you might have
No.
caught
I
me.
know the Star Wars shit. I don't know. I just
Fine.
don't know.
Okay. I'll just if we live in a world where like essentially the human all they have is the brain and their heart and all of the other appendages are like fully robotic, I might say that this person is somewhat less human than a regular human because they operate in society's functions and roles and maybe less than the prototypical example. Is that crazy? I don't.
No,
But I would.
maybe,
but I would
maybe-
also wait. Hold on. Sorry. I would also immediately recognize that these are socially constructed definitions, and I would negotiate with the rest of the people around and say, "Is that person a human?" And if everyone's going, "Yeah, that's a human," then I go, "Okay, then it's a human."
I mean, all language is ultimately going to be socially constructed.
Yes,
but,
that
I
is
would still,
largely my point.
Right. But I think that unfortunately the social constructions on my side on this, in which there is a sufficient threshold for human, which does not lend itself to this sort of more of a human or less of a human. It's just, do you meet the threshold or not? Are you categorized as human or not? And so for me, it would be, are you are you a biological entity that has as part of the taxonomic definition of Homo sapiens sapiens?
Sure.
Do you have
and-
that genetic code? And if so, then I'd categorize you as a human.
Sure, but I think that what you're doing is you're reifying because we've never really met something that we would normally categorize as human beings that doesn't have like the human genetic code. So it's easy
Call
for
them
you
something
to.
else.
What do you mean?
We'd call them something else. We wouldn't call them humans because we have a definition for humans. Categories are by their
Call them
definition.
No.
Neanderthals,
But we could
perhaps?
probably we could expand or restrict that definition. Like we could look at Homo neanderthals. Are those humans? Some might say yes. Some might say no. And I would
There's a very
probably
specific
answer.
reason. Well, there's a very specific reason why I've been saying Homo sapiens sapiens, because Homo sapiens sapiens is the taxonomic way to distinguish
Right.
modern day humans from archaic humans
So-
like Neanderthal.
Totally. So here's the issue that I'm going to be
And
having.
that's
which
also
is-
Homo neanderthalis. That's not even Homo sapiens.
Sure. What I'm really going to be invoking, Wittgenstein has this idea of language games, he calls it, which is a terrible name for it, but I'll sort of explain what it is. But every time we use a word, it's contextual on the environment around it. For example, you're probably going to immediately concede this, but like, if I point to the example that he gives is, if I point to a slab, I'm a construction worker, and I say slab to refer to this piece, this wood. What I'm essentially saying is bring this slab over. But if I'm a father and I've got a kid nearby and I point to the piece of wood and I say slab, what I'm actually saying is this is what we call a slab. That like
Sure.
this is all contextually based off of the environment around us. What I would say is your definition of a human is a completely consistent language game within like a biology class. But
That's every category.
Can I just ask you? Hold on.
Yeah.
I know you're trying not to be pretentious.
Yeah, go
so
for it.
Maybe just dumb it down a little bit.
Okay.
I
understood
just
you,
have a
Hunter. You don't need to dumb it down for me. Just to be
Okay.
clear.
Just have a real quick question
Yeah.
perspective. No, I'm following you.
Hey,
But I
I
just
changed my
want you
name,
to
Wick.
get
You
to
dead
the-
name me.
What? I'm sorry, Hunter.
Damn it, Wick.
Okay. I called you Staxians for years. Hunter.
I get it. and
What
I'm
is
not-
your definition of a human, and how does it differ from his?
So what I would say is that largely speaking, we're not going to use a taxonomical definition for what a human is.
Okay, I'm not asking you what you're not going to use. I'm asking you what is your definition.
Sure.
of
So
what a human is.
right. So usually the way that categories and definitions function. I know. Just let me answer this. I know I'm gonna have to explain prototype theory. It's okay. Sorry, not everyone has read Rosh here. So essentially, whenever you categorize anything, I don't know. Whenever you categorize anything, you find essentially like a prototypical member. This is basically just like something that has all of the traits in a cluster of categories. When we
The
have a
archetype,
share,
yes.
yeah, the archetype of the category, and then we basically say things like that, and it's sort of like it drifts away from the prototype.
Yeah, and then you have boundaries where it stops to be that, correct?
but they're blurry. They're necessarily blurry.
Sure, I understand.
Mhm.
Okay, but I still don't got a definition from human.
I don't know. Can I just invoke Merriam-Webster? I would actually
If
say,
you
wait, hold
want.
on. Could I say this? Could I say this? I'll say Homo sapien sapien, but then I would also say that Homo neanderthals are human, or they're just decidedly less human than Homo sapien sapiens.
I would. So this
Because
is where we disagree.
definitions
I
aren't
would not call them
necessary and
humans.
sufficient.
I would call them hominids. I would not call them humans.
Because for example, I could invoke any definition of a chair, right, according to Merriam-Webster, and it would say something typically with a back and it would say something with a back and 4 legs. I could point to plenty of chairs that don't have 4 legs, even though that is the definition of a chair. And I think that people very often misunderstand what specifically definitions are doing, where they're taking the entire blurriness, like there's the prototype in the middle, the archetype in the middle, and then it's sort of all of the tendrils outside of it. And
A
a
chair is
definition is
anything I
really
sit
just
on.
trying to capture everything. What was that?
So Merriam-Webster
anything
has
I
Homo
sit on.
sapiens as the definition.
Anything you could sit on, so a horse is a chair?
Could be, yeah.
So okay, so like it seems like you're doing the same thing I'm doing, which is like, yeah,
If
No,
it
no, 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 no,
fits,
no. They're,
I sits.
no,
okay?
but
yeah,
I
you
would,
can
I
use-
would say,
well,
because
no, I want to back
people.
up for a second.
Okay,
I want to
yeah,
back up for a
yeah,
second.
yeah.
You can use a horse as a chair. So when we
I
when we
can
consider
no,
chair,
but you would
I
never
think, like,
refer to a horse as a chair.
yeah, hold on. In most situations, you probably would.
I agree with you.
Contact-
I
Just like-
agree with you.
yeah,
I
but
fully
just
agree
like
with you.
you said, right? But just like you
1,000,000%.
said, just like you said, contextually, really, what like a chair or a seat is, it's more of a description of something that has a particular use value. And what is that use value?
Likely.
Something that I can something that I can sit on.
Likely
right?
speaking,
This is the
yes.
What is
right,
the use
right.
value of
I would
women?
also say hold on. I would also say that that's not
good
necessarily
question.
no. That's not necessarily the only reason why we categorize things. It's not just on a functional or pragmatic
Not always,
sense.
but in
it's
this case,
also
I
on
would say yes.
aesthetic. Sure.
Right.
There are also
You're
aesthetic
correct.
distinctions or other distinctions. Famously, like there's a book called Women, Fire, and Dangerous Things by Lakoff, where he basically says there's a category in certain languages where they just group all of those 3 things together, and they couldn't really find like a use value for it. So sometimes there are like arbitrary distinctions, but like yes, broadly speaking,
Sure.
there's going to be a functional reason as to why we categorize things. Yes,
So,
I agree
so
with
going
you.
back, to answer, I guess, to Wick's
Mhm.
question, I mean, what if I ask you what is a human? We're even more deep than what is a woman at this point. We'll get there.
Yeah,
What is a
yeah.
human? You
Uh-huh.
would say the Merriam-Webster definition, which is Homo sapien. I just looked it up.
Yeah,
Wikipedia
yeah,
also
but I
has
would
that.
probably say that doesn't necessitate a human. It's just a definition of a human, and I think people really misunderstand what definitions are. I could say that a Homo neanderthal is less of a human, but still a human, and invoke and say
Well, wait,
actually,
wait. You could
yeah.
say that. Hold on. You could say that. and
That's
I
how
could
all
say a cat
definitions
is-
function.
okay, and I could say a cat is a human.
No, because they're no, because I would point
Why
to
not?
use cases. I would say society doesn't refer to it as a human.
I can talk to cats.
I
can
know- I
use them
know
for many of the
cats
same
are
ways I use
treated
humans.
Hold
better
on,
than
stop,
some humans.
stop. We're playing fucking games
not
here,
stopping.
okay? We don't call
No,
cats humans.
You're playing games. You're
I'm not
looking at
playing
a
games.
Neanderthal. You're looking at a Neanderthal, which is like very
I
different.
think most people
right?
would go,
Tax-
that's a
taxonomically different.
human-ish.
No, taxonomically they're not considered humans. The people in the field don't consider them
Hold
humans.
on, hold
I
on,
agree that
hold on.
I
don't
agree that a cat is going to be further
within that
away.
particular language game. But if
genetically.
you ask the average society, hey, is Homo erectus, is Homo Neanderthal, are those humans? They would probably give you a little bit of like a, I guess, kinda. They would give some sort of
No.
like,
You'd
ish.
you'd probably hear not humans, but maybe human-like, hominid.
Hold on.
They share some features.
But
Just like
wait,
we're
hold on,
closer
hold
to
on, hold
cats
on,
than we are
hold
to
on.
a stick
This
bug.
doesn't matter. This doesn't matter because I am always going to.
I declare it does. I define it as mattering.
No, okay, fine. Then I will concede. I will concede somewhat, and recognize. I hope you understand my metric. And if society is largely in the circumstances where we're like those are not humans, human are just Homo sapien sapien, then I go okay, great, because it's a societally based use case. That is how language.
I'm trying. So in the utmost of good faith, I'm gonna actually like repeat what I hear your definition to be back to you in the best way I can,
Yes.
and you can help me out here.
Yes.
So your definition of human is a Homo sapien or anything close enough to a Homo sapien where if you were to go and ask somebody, the average person, there'd be some significant chance that they would say that's kind of a human.
That.
Is that your
I think-
definition that you're working with?
No. My definition would be Homo sapien sapien, but I would say I don't think you know what a definition is. That oftentimes the way the definitions function, hold on, just hear me out. And this works for every object. Let's look up any object and we're going to find some examples to which the definition doesn't exactly match, but we would still likely call it somewhat of a chair through social convention. Like pick an object.
Okay, like what?
A chair?
Pick an object.
Chair definition. Let's look up chair
Plasma.
definition. Plasma. Well, you're choosing one without.
I'm giving you a test.
Sure, I would say, likely speaking, they're going to invoke a biological definition in which there are necessary and sufficient conditions within that language game. But that
What do you
doesn't counter anything that I'm saying.
Hold on. So I'm sorry. Is my categorization of your definition correct? That you are saying Homo sapiens, but like if you have something that maybe shares some of the traits of like if here, would you
Okay,
say that
here's an
if
example.
aliens came down from Andromeda and they came down and they had the head and they had the suction cups on the fingers and they had the legs, bipedal, all that shit, and they were walking around and they were doing all the shit we do,
Mhm.
right? Would you say, yeah, that's a human?
No, I would.
Would you correct somebody if they said, "Is that a is
No,
that
but
a
it would
human
be-
over
it would
there?"
be
Or
a
would you say,
question
"No,
that
no, no,
would-
that's not a human. That's an alien."
No, it would be a question that we would question and negotiate. Like that would be something that we would invoke. We would go, "Is that a human?" Because that's certainly a blurry case.
I'm talking.
And
about
if we
current
all agree
convention.
no, okay.
Because here's the problem. When I keep referring to this, like obviously with any kind of language, we're going to be referring to some kind of like intersubjective social convention,
Right.
because this is the way words work.
Yes.
If all of us agreed that cat meant dog, then it would be true that
Yes.
cat means dog.
That's my
correct.
point. Yes.
Just like it's true. This is true for any definition.
Okay.
But this is the whole, in my opinion, this is the whole point of like we're literally what we're doing right now is negotiating these definitions and making
Yes.
sure that these definitions are actually exclusive. These definitions actually categorize something. What is that something that we're looking at?
Yeah, but
for
you're
me,
saying-
I actually have parameters that I've set forward. Very easily to understand parameters. If I explained it, if I put it in a statute, people would know for sure what I'm talking about. And some slimy lawyer like me couldn't argue my way into thinking that the alien was a human,
Skill
because this
issue.
matters.
Hold on. I think that when it comes to and here's the issue. I do think here's the issue is that you have in some cases a law background, and in the specific language game that you play, when you are a lawyer or an attorney, you have to have very clear, succinct, precise, necessary, and sufficient definitions. But that is not colloquially outside how that functions.
Okay, but sure, but this is not what we're doing, engaging right now. This is not some colloquial exercise where somebody comes up to me at like some restaurant somewhere. We
No,
are
but-
currently discussing like what is the definition we're working with here. I can agree with you that like if somebody doesn't meet a strict definition, like for example, colloquially, I could see something and I say, Lego, that's a frog, and the person who corrects me and says, actually, that's a toad. Like this kind of person, kind of an asshole, right? This person's kind of a dick.
Right,
They know
right.
what I mean.
Exactly.
But taxonomically wise,
taxonomically, they
this
are correct.
this is a toad.
Yeah, and you were
this person is
incorrect.
correct, and there is
Yes.
a reason for this distinction, right?
Yes,
I
yes,
apply the
but that-
exact same thing when it comes to humans. I
But
apply
that
this exact same
reason,
thing when it comes to
but
man
that
and woman.
reason has no functional distinction when it comes to outside of that biology class. If you're outside in the world, a frog just refers to anything that kind of looks like a frog and is in the water. That's all a frog really is. You're not using these like, oh well, technically look at the heuristics when it comes like what are the phylogenetic fiats that it uses? You're not doing that. You're going, well, it looks like a frog, so I'm
Sure.
calling it a frog.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, and
so
also
the
when I see a
functional
fish,
use
I'm not
case-
saying that's a catfish. That's a shark. I'm like, maybe a shark if it's big enough. I'm gonna know what that is.
I would make a distinction between catfish and sharks.
Yeah, I just said maybe shark is a bad example, but like there's plenty of fish that I'm not going to know like the actual
Right.
like what they
Salmon.
actually are.
Oh, actually, that's
and by the way, and if I was sufficiently uneducated, I might not know the difference between most mammals. It seems like your position here is that we have to like kowtow to the lowest common denominator.
No. We recognize that there are different definitions based off of different contexts. I would certainly say that the biological sex definition of female is certainly important in a biological sense. If you're a fucking doctor, you better fucking know what chromosomes your patient has. Okay. And
I guess.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Before we move on, can I just get this? Like, I'm gonna go step by step. I'm gonna try to get all these
yeah.
concessions. So
Okay,
you would agree?
I have a meta question after, but go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Well, medically, then, Hunter, would you concede that medically, woman and man, the distinction here matters tremendously, and that my
Yes.
definition is most accurate medically?
Your definition. When we say medically, are we because I could also
Yeah.
probably
If
say
you pull out the doctor form, if you go to the hospital and you look at the form, and there's like, are you a man or a woman? Are you going to be like, Well, I mean, ultimately this is all intersubjective. Or are you going to circle?
No,
I am a man. I know what that is.
no, but what you should say is that this is why the sex gender distinction matters so much. Hey, I'm a male. If I have abdominal pain, you better know that I don't have a uterus in there. But also, I would like you to refer to me as a woman when you speak to me intersubjectively. And we play these two language games simultaneously. So you should
Okay, again, I'm just there's I'm trying to there's a social convention category that we're going to go into.
no,
But
but that
I
social
guess I'm just
convention
trying to.
also matters at the doctor. So I don't know if you're going to trip me up on that. Does that make sense?
I
Like,
understand what you're saying. I'm
cool.
not.
Then
I
yes.
understand.
Great, great.
Okay, then
Then
yes.
yes, you should write down male. If you are a
Sure.
trans woman, you should write down male. You should
Okay.
say,
Okay.
I don't have a uterus, by the
Yes.
way,
Yep.
just so you
I hear
know.
you. And then we can and then we can talk about social convention, but wicked
Right, which
assumption.
still it's still
We
Well,
important.
my
still can be
question goes
present in a
to
medical
social
context.
convention.
Yeah,
Yes,
I know.
So
yes.
my question goes to social. I'm just like I'm just curious.
Mhm.
And this is for both of you. Um, what are we trying to decide here tonight? I know what the prompt is,
Mhm.
but it seems to be that you guys have some at least connection on the basics. Um, so I guess what's the utility of the question? Like,
That's
what are we trying to do?
that's a great question, and I think if you were taking notes, you would recognize that is number 11. So thank you for.
Fuck, I don't have 12 fucking points. Just answer my question.
No.
What was
It's
that thing that
it's
you
a
said?
good question.
What was that? What was the definition of that thing that you said you were going to try to not be? What was that? I don't
Pretentious.
pretentious. What is that? What's the meaning of that?
What's the meaning? No. See, you're doing this thing where I'm saying that definitions exist in blurry categories, and you're saying so definitions aren't even real at all. They're actually they're fully arbitrary. You can just sort of decide whatever they want to do.
No, hold on. I agree that they can be blurry, but I'm saying that they don't negate the category. I feel as though this
They
is
don't negate the
and
category.
they don't negate the category, and
I don't know
this
what
is
that means.
I'm
Sorry. Go
going to
ahead.
expound on that. No,
Go
you're
ahead.
good. I'm going to expound on that and also sort of answer Wick's question because uh, obviously, all right, going back to how things are contextual, obviously this isn't just and never was, and Matt Walsh didn't intend it to be some kind of silly little
Right.
semantics exercise. This
As
has
much as I
real,
love semantics exercises.
yes, of course. You're going to get a doctorate in it.
Hell yeah.
And currently have one.
Uh-huh.
The
Wow.
That's
Just
all lies.
purpose of
to
Just
this.
talk about
semantics
protection.
exercises.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I throw that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason why we're having this discussion is obviously because this has
Implications.
ramifications.
Yeah.
I think it has medical implications. I think it has, much larger part, thing that people I think really care about is going to be social convention ramifications that we're going to get into. But I also think there's this other convention here that actually is important. It might it's kind of been what we're talking about now to some extent, which is that although I just called it sort of like a silly semantic game,
Mm-hmm.
I do think that maintaining some coherence and preventing the slide into just complete postmodernism
Right.
and maintaining a level of linguistic coherence actually is good for a society. I
Sure.
think it is important for when we have definitions, for those definitions to mean something, actually be describing something, as opposed to being entirely circular to how people can then, kind of in an Orwellian newspeak, start to redefine things in ways that are very particularly politically advantageous for them.
Sure.
That's not good.
Sure. I'll concede something immediately. This is the answer to question 6.
No one's following the question.
Is biological sex a coherent definition? Yes, it is. It for sure is. There is a coherence to it, for sure. I do reject, firstly, that is how people use that category of woman. They're not checking biological sex. They're using recognizable heuristics. So it's sort of it is a little bit non-functional.
Oh, wait. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
On that very specific question.
Yeah.
I disagree with that. I think that
Okay.
most people are identifying because there's such a strong correlation between phenotype and genetic code.
Yeah.
But I think that for most Americans, at least, if they were to meet somebody who passed, right, who came across
Yeah.
as the
Here's-
sex that they thought they were, but then later they found out, oh, this person has the genetics of the other sex.
Mhm.
I think that the word they'd probably come to mind is this person's actually a man. or this person's, oh shit, this person's actually a woman. That's
Sure.
what the vast majority of people will actually think. So I think that
Um.
really the definition they're working with is the biological, is the taxonomic, but when it comes to like visual identification, just like with any other taxonomic definition, like with frog or toad or
Sure.
bird
Sure.
or
Sure.
or
But
anything like this, they're also identify. Like if, for example, if a biologist went to somebody with a fish and said, actually, this is not a fish, this is a mammal, right? People are like, oh shit, I didn't know that. That's actually a mammal now. Look at that. I'm gonna go forward and I'm
yeah.
gonna call this a mammal.
Yeah. There's a huge issue here, which is I could send you this brilliant article where this guy imagines going to this like um Babylonian king, and he goes, "Hey, you keep saying that whales are part of like you keep saying that whales are fish, and they're not fish. They're actually mammals, right?" And the Babylonian king, he's like, "I don't even know what the fuck phylogenetics are. Like, I call them whales because they're in the fucking ocean. I call animals animals because they're on the land." And they go, "No, no, no, look, the phylogenetics matter." And they map this whole thing out for them. And the king
Mhm.
basically listens and goes, "Listen, I'm sure that that's useful from wherever the fuck you are, but here we have a kingdom, or sorry, we have people who are over the sea and people over the land. So it's actually important that we call whales fish so that we make sure that these people are over that specific person. Like, there is a functional basis off of this. And when
That
we
wait,
say
that
things
is
are
important. That what is over what?
like like certain statutes are regard fish in the
Um,
creature, like fish
Yeah,
in the ocean.
yeah, right. But you don't have to negate the like you can simply say, like you can take a sort of like a revisionist approach here and be fine. You can say when we came up with this statute, we were referring to these sort of mammals as well, and maybe hopefully you would clarify that maybe in some any kind of future legislation. But you wouldn't necessarily have to. You would say at the time of writing, this is what they were referring to.
Yes.
Language changes or whatever. That's what
Yes.
we're gonna refer to it as. But
Right.
like it would be
Okay.
better if they started referring to the whales as mammals for a number of reasons. Because it's important. I think that it's very possible that
Sure,
down the road it
sure.
could be important to distinguish the
Wait.
fish
Can I
from
pause you?
mammal.
Can I pause you real quick? Do you recognize it's not an ontological category, but or sorry, it's not this. We're not speaking ontologically. We're not speaking whether or not actually whales are fish. We're saying would it be better to categorize them as fish? Because actually we could do either, but we have to be looking at the function of these categories to determine what's best for society.
Right. But the difficulty again that I keep running into is
Okay.
that you're correct that this because language is an intersubjective exercise. Uh, you could do this for any kind of taxonomic definition. In fact, it could be it could be irrelevant to the difference between uh, frogs and toads, or
Mm-hmm.
even maybe even more or less complex. You could say it's irrelevant to distinguish between dogs and cats.
Uh huh.
You could say, well, look, for our purposes, I mean, it's a furry thing. It's got four legs. That's
Yeah.
just a cat. Like
Okay.
we're looking at cat. Oh, coyote comes up. That's a cat too.
Okay.
You could have a very simplistic language. In fact, this is the case in some like some
Or it could
African
be
languages,
more
for example.
complicated, but in different ways.
Sure. Yeah, in certain African languages, for example, there's
Okay.
I think they have there's like
Yeah.
three different words they have for color, and they just sort of throw a word out for like, well, that's in ancient Greek writings, for example, they would describe the ocean as wine colored because
Right.
wine was used to refer to both purple and blue.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. You can have like simplistic kind of like generalizations here. Um, I don't think that is better than being more specific if you can be more specific. And
I
I especially don't think it's better if it goes against what the actual utility value is,
I
which
agree.
I
I
think
fully agree with
which
you.
I think biology, as I try to describe before, is I think how most people actually mean it. Like I think for the vast majority of Americans, if you were to describe, oh, by the way, that's actually a man, that's going to affect their decision making as it regards that person. Would you
Yes, wait,
agree?
hold on. Yes, but there's a little bit of a double-edged sword there. You recognize that the way that they're treating this person in society would change because
Yeah.
because gender exists in this social role in society.
There's a
Do
social
you
there are social constructions that we have around all sorts of biological quirks that people have.
Okay,
Sure.
now here's my question. Do you think that certain females might be able to occupy that role of man? Yeah,
Tomboys, sure.
sure. Okay. And I
Are
think that
tomboys men?
they are probably okay. Okay, I'm going to be really clear here.
Are
I'm
there
going to be
more
really
men than
clear.
women?
No, I might not say that, but I might say that they are less of a woman than a
Less
prototypical
women?
woman. Yeah. Now, what I really mean by that is they are treated as less of a woman in that societal role. Just to be super
Um,
clear here. I am not
To
saying that like on
to
an ontological level
yeah.
that, but I don't even know if I believe in like an ontological identity or reality.
Sure.
So I am just looking at a social reality, and yes, to some extent, those tomboys are less of a woman. Although I
So
would
how would
probably
they be
wouldn't
m-
use
how-
that. I wouldn't use that
Hold on.
construction.
You,
So in
you
order
would
to be more
understand
of a
this.
woman, they would need to
Just
like
real
wear
quick,
more
just real
makeup, have
quick,
longer
just
hair.
to back up Hunter for a moment.
Yeah.
You would understand this if we were talking about men, right? You would understand that some men, even though they're biologically male, in different societies are seen as less than other men or more
Yes.
manly than other men,
Yes.
right? Based on how they conduct themselves and a whole lot of role things that have nothing at all to do with biology, right?
Yes.
We understand that the concept of what a man is changes over time
Yes.
from a societal level. We're
To
not
some
talking
degree.
about male or female here. We're talking about men.
I would
right?
I would say they probably
can I just finish?
Yeah, sorry,
Right?
go ahead.
A man, what was considered a man, like a man's man, a manly man, more man than other men in Athens was substantively different than what Spartans considered to be a
Certainly.
manly man, right?
Cultures are different.
And this kind of speaks to his point, right? If a
This speaks to
tomboys
Lactoid's point.
are considered less women
No, he
than
thinks it's
most women
that's your
are
point.
because of how they occupy the social role.
Right. So when we refer to people as manly, what we're generally talking about is this person very much fit within the phenotypes that are typical of their or behavior that is typical of what they are. So like a car, I would say, is like very carish. If it behaves in the way a
A
car
real man opens
is
the door
perhaps.
for a woman.
Right, a real man opens the door.
That has
But of
nothing to do
course,
with biology.
sure, but of course, though, Wick, if I didn't open the door for a woman, you wouldn't thus say, "Well, Lactoid, you are a woman now."
No, but you would
I would say
certainly
that
be
you're
less of a man.
or if I was
Right,
following
but by
that,
saying that, what
less
you're
man.
really saying is, I think you're less masculine. I think that you're not
Yes.
abiding by the social. You're saying that you're not abiding by the social conventions. But
But what else is a
but-
social
but-
category
but-
other than
no, because I'm saying it's a biological category.
No, sure.
Because
sure.
because if Wick found out that like I had
I have a-
XX chromosomes, or if I found out that Wick had XX chromosomes, and that everything here has just been an act, what I would say is Wick has
Been
been
an
a woman
act.
this
Would
whole
that make
time
our
was
dick
deceiving
pics we
us.
send each other less gay?
It would be very much more impressive because I would say,
Oh
how the
my
fuck
God.
did you do that? I mean, that surgery was very well done.
Uh-huh.
But
You'd be
still,
surprised.
but
Okay.
regardless, like,
Lactoid,
Hunter,
I have a question.
I would say, Hunter, you were a woman because here's the problem. Here's the problem with I think the definition that you're presenting.
Yeah.
It would mean that you can't pretend to be a woman. You can only be a woman. So if
Yes.
I go to a theater, for example, and I portray a woman very convincingly, I have the wig on, I got the makeup on, and I'm convincing the audience I'm a woman as part of the act. Am I pretending to be a woman,
Hold on.
or am I just a woman in that
Hold on.
moment of time?
I genuine question, okay? Because
Mhm.
I might be able to bite some bullets that might make me look crazy. If you answer this in a very specific way, does the audience know that that person is a male?
The audience doesn't know.
Okay, the audience doesn't know. Then I would say within that language game, yes, you are fulfilling that role of a woman. You're being
And
treated
that's a
as
woman
a
up
woman.
there. Despite the fact that it's Bubba,
But
who
I would say
identifies as a
the
man,
moment
as a wife at home.
I would say the moment that you step outside of that role, the moment you take off that dress, the
I'm not.
moment that you
I'm
go
not talking
home-
about that yet. I know. I'm not talking about that yet.
I
I'm really trying
understand,
to
but
nail.
that's-
Yeah. Well, hold on.
I understand.
I'm trying to
But
nail it. I'm appealing to that common sense, the social
No,
convention that we
sure,
were talking
sure,
about earlier.
sure.
So when we're talking about some guy named Bubba, who he shoots guns,
Is
and
this a
rides
reference to
motorcycles,
something?
big fat dick. I mean, just massively masculine dude. And
You
every
keep
which way.
saying, but he convinces a whole audience.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah.
Okay.
He opens the door for his wife every time.
Yes.
But due to the magic of
The magic, stop.
of makeup, due to the magic of, in fact, holographic AI fucking lighting imaging, like it transforms him and it makes him look like the most beautiful, convincing woman. I would say this person is acting as a woman. I would say this person is playing a woman.
We would
this
say
person
that-
is behaving. This person is trying to convince an audience that they are this thing that they're not.
Mhm.
You would say, no. They are a woman during the performance.
Well,
and then the moment they step off, the moment they step,
Okay.
I have a whole list of
No,
false
no, no,
questions.
no.
before you
Can I-
say-
let me
before-
clarify.
before- Let me finish before you clarify. You would say, and you can correct this. You would say the moment they step off the stage and pull off the wig and the holograph stops and they see Bubba, now it's a man.
Okay. So, largely speaking, so I'm actually going to say no. I'm going to say no, and for a few different reasons.
Well, you said yes before.
I know, but it's kind of it's definitely the blurry boundary. Okay.
Just to be
We kinda hit the
clear,
blurry
what are you
boundaries.
saying no to now?
That person's not a woman. Now, I would say, largely speaking, because you have to confer to all members of the society. This person, sorry, let's say I'm Bubba.
To
I
all
don't
members?
to a sufficient number.
Sufficient number. The audience compared to who?
Wait, hold on. Compared to the government, doesn't treat this person as a man. To his wife, doesn't treat him as a man, and those realities still exist while he's on stage.
So if his audience is sufficiently large enough, then he's a woman.
If his audience is the entire world, then yes, of course. If
Yeah,
everyone
he's
is
a
convinced,
superstar.
hold on, and you agree with this. Here's what's
No, I
so
don't.
weird. No, because we've had this conversation, and this is why I had the conversation, because I felt like you were easily movable because you conceded this when it came to race, and I will point to race as a number of different examples. We talked about Rachel Dolezal, right?
Mhm.
Rachel Dolezal, in a sense, for the audience, she was a white woman who essentially
She's
pretended
spiritually
to be
black.
She's spiritually black. Yeah. We essentially recognized that in 20 years ago, or whenever the fuck she was the head of the NAACP, or a certain chapter, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like 10 years ago, she was black, but now we consider her to never have been black. But she was decidedly black because
I
everyone
don't.
treated her as black.
No, hold on.
Is that not what we said? Because I believe
No.
that is 100%
I'm
what we said.
gonna do a couple things. I'm gonna do a couple
Yeah,
things
yeah.
here. I'm gonna address the
Wait,
priority.
wait. Can I add a
will
third
talk about
question?
Rachel Dolezal.
Can I add a third
Let me write
question?
it down. You give me a second to write down the first
That's
two. Then,
fine.
before you do that. So,
Are we counting or not counting
audience.
domestic women on women violence?
Dolezal.
Right.
All right, third one. Go ahead. Brutal. The fuck. Go
yeah,
ahead.
that was crazy. Hold on, now I got distracted. Do you think? Wait, sorry. There's going to be a little primer to this. You think that we should establish necessary and sufficient conditions for women for the betterment of society? Yes. Just yes or no, real quick. Don't write that question down. This is a.
I'm writing it down.
Okay.
Sufficient. Establish necessary and sufficient conditions for the betterment of society.
Yes.
Yes.
Should we do that for? We should. Okay. Should we do that for black people? Should we do that for the ethnicity of black?
I don't know. I think race is much less solidified than. In some ways, I think transracialism is more legitimate than transgenderism because I think it's actually based on less of a actual biological category.
Sure.
But when it comes to transracialism, the reason why I use the Rachel Dolezal example is because in some respects I almost sort of reject like race essentialism tremendously. Like
Right.
I think that people who identify strongly with their race tend to be the worst people.
Sure. Would you? So do you
But
recognize?
I have this written down though. I have the Rachel Dolezal question.
Yeah. We can get into that. Sorry, we can get into that.
So
Go for it.
sufficient audience.
Take this wherever
You
want.
said that. You said for Bubba's case, the whole world audience is required. I don't think that's actually required. The government might recognize him as a man, but I don't think that when we're referring to the government, we're obviously not referring to all the people in the government. Congress
Sure.
doesn't know Bubba's name.
Sure.
All the government employees don't know his name.
Sure.
Really, what it is like some bureaucrat at the Social Security office mailed a card out one time and has some files on this. And yeah, you're going to have like his wife and his circle of friends, and you're going to have the people that knew him. And yeah, this represents a somewhat large community. But I think that if Bubba is any kind of famous, it's pretty easy, I think, for him to exceed an audience and have an audience much larger than the group of people that know him as a man. And during that performance, that much larger audience is going to see him as a woman.
And if that audience genuinely thinks that Bubba is a woman, yes.
The audience believe because Bubba's playing such a good role as a woman, they believe him to be a woman.
I would say that person probably still doesn't fit within the norms of the community of like what specifically a woman is.
They're all convinced he's a woman.
Then wait, hold on.
What do you mean the norms? They're fully convinced that he's fulfilling all the norms of a woman. They're looking at him and they're convinced.
When he goes to the red carpet, okay, and he's dressed as a woman and everyone fully believes that he's a woman, he is to some degree much more so a woman. Yes.
No. Is he a woman? He's not on the red carpet yet. He's doing the presentation. He's convinced the audience that he's a woman.
Yes.
Is he a woman?
Certainly much more so of a woman. Yes.
Is he a woman?
I reject the framing. Framing.
Well, this is the third time now. Before you said yes, then you said no. Now you say he's more of. Now we're on the third answer.
Well, wait, hold on.
He's somewhere on there.
Okay. Well, then
because and by the way, the reason why I'm hammering you on this is because I have like 4 questions based on this.
Sure.
Because
no. And it's a fair question.
Yeah.
It is a fair question, but I would also immediately pivot to this
I
blurriness
know.
and this like difficulty in establishing like a correct answer is difficult in all blurry categories. Every single time you're gonna go like, man, I don't really know actually. Maybe we gotta like ask around, like, what do you guys think? Like, I don't really know. Like, if I like, for example, um, we could look to black people and go, um, and we could
Yeah.
just look to them and go,
Wait, no, no.
shit,
I've got a good example here. Well,
yeah.
I actually didn't know the actor Robert Downey Jr.
Uh-huh. Oh,
Before
you
the
knew
movie
him
Tropic
from
Thunder.
sure.
I genuinely, the first time I ever saw him was I
Okay.
walked in and there was like in the movie theaters when they have those like
I
pop-up
understand.
cardboard, of Robert Downey Jr. as a black man.
Mhm.
I just believed he was a black man.
Mhm.
If there's enough people like me, if this was like his debut, I know he's a famous actor before, but if this was his debut, was he black?
He is okay. And again, this is a blurry. We are right in the middle of the blurry boundary. Like you can imagine, there's the prototype, there's all of the gradients, and there's like a boundary that exists where like outside of it you certainly aren't, and inside you definitely are. This is the blurriness you're describing. I'm going to have a difficult time answering that question. I would
Here,
say
I'll try. Society. If society decides you are something, you are.
that's what
And
I'm
if
saying.
society-
Yes, which is why I'm gonna
Right,
have to pull people around and I
At
have
least
to.
when it comes to race.
Yes.
Then
If society decides Hassan is white, he's
Then
white.
he's white. Yeah, and
Now-
I would say
If
to you,
yeah,
that's
now-
why I was going to
lactoid
invoke.
I love
is
this answer.
black, then
Mhm.
you can do everything a black person can.
Then
Now,
that's
now,
why.
wait, wait,
That's
wait,
why
now,
I
hold on. Now,
invoke
wait. Now,
logic.
answer the
because,
question. Answer
yeah.
the question about now if Robert Downey Jr. was dressed as a woman, convincingly enough that society saw Robert Downey Jr. as a woman. Is Robert Downey Jr. a woman?
If everyone treats him like a woman, then yes.
I want to hear. I want to hear.
Oh,
Okay,
go
if
ahead.
everyone treats him like a woman, or no, if enough people, it can't be everybody, because
Yeah,
all
it
you would
has
need then
to
is in your
reach
mind
a
one
threshold.
transphobe, and now.
Yeah,
So
it
what
has
would
to
you
reach a
say, Wick?
threshold. It has
So
to
it has to
reach
re-
the threshold.
So
And
there's some
again,
threshold.
I
of people-
don't I don't necessarily share this definition, right? I am simply steel manning the argument.
No, that's fine. But what I'm not asking you to like present to me, Wick, because you're not
I
necessarily
didn't prepare for this at all. Right?
prepared. I understand,
Yeah.
but I'm just
But
asking you right now.
my real answer here is yes. If enough people recognize you, if enough of society recognizes you as a thing, then you are de facto that thing. That's just how countries are. Like, what is a
Yes,
nation?
exactly.
It's whatever enough of the world recognizes as a nation, right?
And there's going to be some
That
blurriness.
is
We're going to go like, what about
functionally-
Taiwan? That's a
Hold on,
little
if I may
difficult.
finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right?
Sorry.
And you would put
It's
this
a
in the movie
functional
context as well.
definition. What does society treat you as? What is it that you are allowed to do and how you are allowed to act? And that is entirely dependent on society. That's why I get frustrated when a lot of people say, "Well, I'm an X." I'm like, "Well, you can call yourself a Democrat or you can call yourself a Republican all day, but if no one else agrees with you, you're
Mhm.
not actually that."
Yeah, there's a really good example with like.
So Connor's a liberal.
No, wait, hold on. I'll say this.
Most people would not agree.
Well,
to
I
that.
would say, wait, just hold on.
wait,
No. I want to say this
I want
because.
to ask Wick a question. I
Okay.
want to ask Wick a question based on what he just said, because he just said that if the audience question, where if an actor Bubba or Robert Downey Jr. or whoever goes in front of a sufficiently large audience of people
It
playing
has
a
to be
woman,
society. It's not an audience thing. It has to be society. So it can't just be in one single setting. It has to be over the course of how they live their day-to-day lives. It can't just like when you say audience, I think that someone is on stage, right? And when you are on
Mhm.
stage, it is understood you are presenting, right? You are being observed, and that there's just different contexts and rules that might apply there. But when we talk about people and how they act on their day-to-day, how they are treated by society as a whole, that's a different thing. Does that make
I
sense?
think it's different in terms of the it's only different in terms of scale. It's only different in terms of
I disagree.
time. I think that but if we're taking a snapshot of like, okay, we have somebody, because when I see people out in the wild, I'm usually not seeing them consistently. I'm usually seeing them for a very short period
Sure.
of time and then potentially never seeing them again.
Mhm.
And so when you have somebody presenting to an audience, they are let's say it's a play, and they're up there and they're dressed as a woman and they're very convincing as a woman, and they're presenting this way to a woman. this person is presenting to a large group of people really for probably longer than your average person is presenting to people within society on any given
Hold on.
period of
No,
time.
no, no. The flaw in this analogy is that while you might only observe them for a short amount of time, a snapshot, 6 seconds as you pass them on the street, they are still existing in society all the time, constantly, right? Much, much longer than you personally, as an individual, are observing them, right? So we're talking about society as a whole, which is much different than your individual amount of time you might perceive them. And I acknowledge that some people can be more involved in society and less involved in society. But you understand the point that I'm trying to make here?
Sort of. I just think there's like a whole bunch of issues. I think there's pit holes with some of the things you're saying, but I understand the point you're making. The point you're making is one play isn't enough, like to categorize this person as a woman, even if they have the whole audience fooled. You would still say,
Because
oh,
they'll
that
take
person's
off their wig at the end
yeah,
of
yeah.
the
You would
play.
say that person's pretending to be a woman. But then, to kind of put your position maybe a little bit uncharitably, or I guess the way I would argue against it is if you pretend to be a woman for a long enough period of time
Hmm.
around enough people, then
Yes.
at some point it stops becoming pretending,
Yes.
and then at
Yes.
Fake
some
it
point it
till you
crosses
make
over
it.
into you're that actual thing.
Yeah. Fake
Yeah.
it till you make it is
Fake,
a
fake it till you make
thing,
it.
right?
Yeah.
And would you use this for any other category, like let's say a different species? Like if I was a very convincing fursuit, if I wore it enough, would I eventually become a dog?
And you would wait.
Only society recognized that you
They
as an
did.
actual dog.
But yeah, society began treating me as a dog
Yes, then you would
because
be a dog
You're a
in
fucking
I'm
all
a
wait. Hold on.
dog.
all
You're
you
a
do.
pet in
Like,
someone's
for example,
house.
if we were in the ancient Babylonian era and I took my armies and I came into your country and I raped and I pillaged my way through, and then I captured you, the ruler of the enemy country, and then I made you, I gouged out your eyes, I cut out your vocal cords, I put you on a collar, I had a dog bowl for you to eat, I commanded everyone to see you as a dog and trained you to start acting like a dog, you would in essence be my dog.
Sure,
Um,
and
I will also
no, I'd be
say
I would not be your dog because that has different like connotations here. I would be a dog.
My dog as well in
Yeah,
this
yeah, but
case.
maybe as well, but I'd be a dog. And
Yes.
you would agree that this definition here is entirely incompatible with self-identification.
I
No, because you aren't deciding whether or not you are a dog. You
Right.
probably do not want to be this dog. You
Well, no,
probably say,
hold on, that's
"I am a
exactly what I just
man,"
said.
and you would scream
Right.
it out and
Wait, no,
identify
you
yourself.
you must have misheard me. You must have misheard me.
Oh,
I said this position is entirely incompatible
oh,
with
incompatible. Sure, sure, sure.
self-identification.
Yeah, no,
Right.
yeah,
I'm
and
not a
I
self-ID.
largely reject self-identification as well. I will
So
say
if a
that
trans person is not passing enough, they're not really a woman.
they are certainly less of a woman. Yes, I would
But they're
immediately
not a
bite that
woman
bullet.
yet.
It depends, but yeah, sure.
Well, the whole debate we're having specifically over trans is, are they women? And the whole argument is people trying to convince society whether or not they are.
Hmm.
And that's the point of the argument. When I ask that utility question, that's what this is. It
Well,
is an argument that
the
society is
vast majority of
currently
people don't
having
see them as real
and
women,
engaged
right?
in, right?
I don't know if that's true. We would have to be looking at specific trans people. Hunter Schafer, I think that she is 100%. She's largely considered to be a woman.
No, I know. I think that most Americans, given how public she
Really?
is about the fact that, hold on, given how public Hunter Schafer is about their biology, I think that information's out there, and I think that if you present that information, most Americans are going to say that's not a woman. That's they're most blue collar, your average
I
run of the mill person. That's really a man.
Hold on,
That's
but
really a man.
unless and until they were presented with that information.
It's out there.
I still
It's out there. The information's out there just as much as their faces. In
Hold,
fact,
that might be
I know
for,
less
again,
about
that might be for
I
that
know less
specific
about Hunter
person, but we're
Schafer's
talking.
face than I know about the
Sure,
fact
sure,
that
sure.
they're a
But
trans person.
hold on. But we're talking about, we're not just talking about famous trans people. We're talking about people you would never know, right?
No,
That are
I
just
agree.
in society.
Sure, but
And they
this
are
is where I think
categories, in my opinion.
right, and this is where I think I disagree with both of you. Going back to the definition that was presented before,
Mhm.
because you guys agree that because there's really two definitions that most of the trans argument goes down. The first one is self ID, and the other one is societal performance.
Yeah.
The self ID, I think that is being rejected here, where if you're not sufficiently societally performing, you're not really that thing. So somebody who doesn't, conform to the phenotypes or conform to the behaviors that we typically associate with women, they're not really a woman. They're just, they're just
Performing,
saying
I
they are.
might quibble on
Um,
that word, but
I'm
fair. I
yeah.
understand what you're
right.
saying.
I don't
Well,
like I don't like Judith Butler's
well, hold on, but they're
understanding
not
of
seen as a woman,
performance.
therefore they're not a woman under the definition that
Yeah,
you guys
yeah.
have
So
provided.
I see it as an interaction between two different people. It's not just that the first person performs; it's the second person also accepts it.
So, well, let me
Well,
ask you this. Let me
sure,
ask
but
you
they
this,
don't
Black Cloud,
accept it if
just real
there's
quick.
no kind of performance.
But let me
No,
ask
I
you
know.
this.
That's why I'm saying it's both.
During
Of
during
course.
the 1858, 57 in America, would you have considered, right, the way that they were treated? Like, black people were not considered by society to be people, right? And
I think they were wrong.
this is the hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Okay.
All.
But even if, since society did not see them as people, right?
Yeah.
I'm flipping the script here. I'm
Yeah.
arguing
Yeah.
both
Yeah.
sides,
Yeah. No, go for it.
right? They were still people, were they not? They were still human, even though society at the
So
time in the
I
South
will. I'm gonna.
did not consider them human.
I'm gonna steel man you because I
fight it,
do think.
fight it.
Shut the fuck up. I'm gonna steel man you because I do think actually, they were considered people and human. They just didn't necessarily have the rights. If
That's
you asked
probably
who the
true.
people are, they're probably gonna point to the black people too. So, but I will steel man you and envision a world in which black people are not considered human.
Sure.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing. It's going to be extremely difficult to escape my subjectivity, to escape
Because
my
and I understand. And
21st.
just to
Yeah,
just to
So
clarify,
yeah,
just to clarify, that was the goal of many people at the time, slave owners.
sure.
They wanted to,
Dehumanization.
and that's why they used phrenology and all these things, because they
Yeah.
wanted to draw a big distinction between humans and
Well,
black people.
I do think
right?
there's like there were both humans, but one is a lesser human. But I don't want to quibble. I want to steel man. you.
No, that's what I'm
And
saying. That they
like-
were they were trying to draw the distinction and make them a separate.
They put them in a lesser category, is what Wick is saying.
Yeah,
they put them in this
yeah,
category
yeah.
as lesser, and so
And I'm-
so you would agree that they were lesser at
yeah.
that time.
Well, sorry. They were lesser. I think you're smuggling in
Biologically,
ontology
because they
there.
put them in this
No,
biological
no,
category that they defined as lesser.
I would not say biologically they were lesser, but socially, of course, they were. And if you feel like this
Were
is
they
taught
actually lesser, or were they treated lesser?
there is no distinction between actual and treated. That is my position. That is my ontological position. Is like a constructivist position. in
So
which-
rights are given up there.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So if society we decide to not give somebody rights, it's not like we can violate their rights then.
Sure, I would probably say in my subjective experience, which is like I'm an American who grew up I was born in 1995. I'm probably going to I will invoke my morals and norms onto that society and say, well, of course of course black people are human. But I am doing so from my subjectivity. A way to frame this, a way to describe this, and I'm not trying to play rhetorical games, is that were black people humans? No. But now they always have been. Does that make sense? Like there's a
It
sort
does,
of
and it's
there's a-
consistent.
there's a
I don't
perspective of
think so.
linguistic.
He did bite that bullet.
Yeah.
They weren't, but they always have been. That's so I know what
Yes.
you're doing. Like that's interesting or whatever, but it's blatantly contradictory.
It's not. It's
No.
not because I recognize that
It-
through
it
my
is
subjective
warrants,
lens,
they
which is
all-
all that we have, we can essentially view.
But it's not
different
just your
cultures.
subjective lens, because this whole time you've been appealing to the subjective lens of society.
Yes.
You're not just saying yes.
Sorry.
You're not just saying
Sorry. Yes, of course, but society recognizes black people as human. The current
okay,
society
now-
that I grew up in.
Right.
Yes.
But yes, they recognize them as
And
the
I am
current
pa-
people the current people that exist. They do, but the society then, you would agree that the society then did not recognize
Of course.
black people as being equal. They didn't
Yes.
recognize them as occupying this biological. They
Yes.
consider them the sons of Ham.
Yes.
They didn't put them in the same category.
I
right?
understand. Yes.
And
But
so,
I
and so-
cannot
hold on,
escape-
wait, no, let me follow up. So you would say yes then, that because societally they define them as being within this lesser category, then you would say that black people were indeed in this lesser category.
Yes, but now they never have been. Because through my own subjective personal lens, which I have and I cannot escape, I live in the 21st century. I was born in 1995. I was born in America. Black people are as equal as me. I would refer to them as human. And I would say yes, even in the 1700s they weren't.
Why does the current society have greater authority than the prior society?
No, it's not greater authority. It's my authority, and I'm speaking as me.
Why? You have authority over like the will of
I
society?
have no authority. No, I have no authority. I'm speaking as
Well,
myself.
the
You asked
answer
me
to
a
that question, Lactoid, the answer to that question is because we exist and they don't.
No, I understand that we
No, but-
exist, but we can't speak for all society.
And I'm
Like in the same
not.
way that
No, hold
in
on.
the same way that
This current society exists, but the past
I
society.
understand, but I'm not them.
I don't even understand what you're saying.
Hold
Of
on,
course.
you
I-
asked why we have more authority. Hold on, you asked a question why we have more authority than they do.
No,
right?
no, you're missing the point.
Was that
There-
not your question?
Stop. There is a society that exists
Was that not your
with it
question?
currently. Do you agree? Let's just go very point by point, just so we won't get lost. There is
Sure.
a society that currently exists.
Yes.
I am not the society. When
No,
you
but
were
we're
talking
representing portions of the society for the debate.
some very small portion, but
Of course.
all of society that's not us is not us by definition,
Yeah.
I understand.
right? What is the legitimacy that comes from that society as compared to the society from the 1800s?
There is no authority.
Well,
I don't.
Okay.
I think that
That
authority is
society
a
that
poor
exists-
framing.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
my
so,
answer is the
so-
same. That society exists. They are able to act. The old society does not exist. It is unable to act.
I think me and Wick are going to
I
disagree.
understand,
That's-
but
yeah.
maybe
Can I
you
just
understand where
clarify
I'm going
my
with this.
position?
The
Yeah.
tyranny of the
My
hold on,
position-
the tyranny of the present is what I'm saying.
Let
people who
me
show up make
clarify your
rules.
position.
And the people who exist make up society. And that
Yeah.
society is better, or not better,
Mhm.
I should say. That society has more power and more authority than any society that's existed before it, no matter whether that society in the past was great or terrible. Those societies are dead, and ours is alive.
So Hunter, let me clarify my position here
Yeah.
because then it might explain where I'm going with this point.
Yeah.
Regardless of the beliefs, if all of society except for me believed that black people weren't human beings, I would disagree with them, and I would reject. I just reject with their beliefs on this.
Yeah.
That's that society has no authority on my beliefs. That has no
Sure.
authority on my definitions of things.
Okay.
This is also the case.
Wait,
when it
hold on.
comes to,
Do I have to?
sorry.
Is
Well,
that a
but I
question?
mean by
Because
definition-
I might not agree.
It's not a question. It's not a question. It's a statement. So
Okay.
before, when you said that rights are given, not there, I would say that human beings have rights, and I think that modern day society can choose to recognize them. And if they do, then I think they're correct. If they don't, then I think they're incorrect. And I think that human beings always had those rights.
Yeah.
And I think prior societies didn't recognize them, and I think that they were wrong. You could have an example where a dead society was more correct than a living society.
Of course. That's why I reject Wick's framing, which is
Sure.
that like present tense, whatever the successful society is the one that is more correct. The present, the really what I would say
No,
is
hold on.
you
You're
can't
misframing
escape.
it.
Okay,
It's not
sure.
more correct. It's the one that's
Has
able
authority.
to have the authority.
Okay, sure. Has authority.
And authority
I'm
does not apply
referring to moral authority. I
correctness.
should have been clear.
I would
I
say-
know authority,
Okay.
like in terms of guns, obviously, but I'm talking about in
Here's-
terms of like moral authority over
Oh,
our
moral
understandings.
authority
But
is a
my
different question.
my question is, how can you anchor your how could you anchor these positions into anything other than the subjective experience that we're experiencing through society's lens? Like, are you just discovering it through first principles by determining that all humans are created equal? Is that
Yeah, fundamentally, it's going to all go back to presuppositions and axioms.
right? Yes, correct. Because those axioms are arbitrarily determined. I can choose to reject your
Yeah, but
axioms.
the goal is to minimize them. You can, but the goal is to minimize the amount of axioms you have. You can choose to reject
What are you
them,
talking
but then
about?
we
The
just
goal is to minimize axioms. Where are you getting that from?
Occam's razor. The goal is to try to minimize the amount of suppositions that you're using with any
Okay,
kind of
great.
position.
Here's a new axiom that I determined.
You could reject Occam's razor.
No. I'm not going to. Here's my axiom. Because you probably have 2 or 3 axioms that you build all of your suppositions from. I just have one.
Really,
All
one main
people
one.
should die. Okay? Prove I'm wrong.
Oh, I can't. If it's an axiom, I can't prove that you're wrong.
Okay, isn't that my point? That you actually can't determine these? You actually they all come
No,
from
no. Sure. What? Here, let me explain. If you have the axiom of all people should die,
Uh-huh.
because I think all this is fundamentally like gonna be all axioms are presuppositions.
Uh-huh.
At that point, there's no use in having a conversation with you anymore.
I
'Cause
agree
can't move you.
1,000,000%.
I can't move you on something.
unnegotiable. I'm
It's
unnegotiable.
entirely unnegotiable. I just have to defeat you at this point.
I
In any
fully
kind
agree.
of political battleground that
I
there is.
fully
Yeah.
agree, but there is no correct versus incorrect. You are speaking from your position, which is people should be treated equal, and I'm speaking from my position, which is all people should die. And there is no authority to assert which one is correct.
Sure. But I'm assuming that we do share some presuppositions.
Exactly,
One of the-
because we
Wait,
live
wait,
in
wait,
our.
wait, right. One of the presuppositions, a couple of the presuppositions that I think we
Okay.
agree on
Okay.
is that we generally, hopefully, agree that language should be concise, that language should be
Sure,
clear, that
sure.
language should, not be so malleable as to be easily manipulated by political actors.
Okay.
That
that
language should reflect like important societal functions.
Okay.
And that it
here's
should
my
be
issue.
consistent
Here's my issue. Here's my issue.
and not circular.
No.
Which I
No,
guess
I
yours isn't,
reject all of
because-
that. I reject all of that. I
It
think
should be complicated and vague
no, hold on.
and opaque.
No, I don't. No, stop. Stop fucking straw manning me. Listen to me, okay? I think you said concise and consistent. Consistency is I think that what you're doing is you're asserting that my definition is not consistent because it has blurry boundaries, and I fully reject that. I would point to every other thing that we label. Okay, let's look at chairs, for example. We did this before. I looked up a definition, and it said a seat for one person. Okay,
It's blurrier than mine. You would agree.
it's
Like
pretty
my
close.
definition is less blurry than yours.
It's
So your mom
pretty
would not be a
one-
chair since
I would say
more than one person uses it.
your issue is that it doesn't map onto the way that people use language as much as
Oh,
mine
I think it does.
Yeah,
No, I think it does.
No, but I would say that if you see Hunter Schafer, you are going to struggle to call that person a him. You're really
Again,
gonna
but again,
you're gonna
this is where the whole discussion went down. Where I think that if you trick people, and
my
this is what I
God.
meant to say before.
No, but you
I
can
think that
have
if
all
you-
of
if-
that information. You could say
If you
this person.
if you're in a performance, let
Let Lactoid go.
yeah, if you're in a performance, whether it be on a stage or whether it be throughout the day or whatever,
Uh-huh.
if you, like, I think that you can mask something, and it can be masked. It can be a disguise.
Okay.
Perfect example of this. Let me ask you this very directly.
Yeah.
Me myself, growing up, I was androgynous as a child
Uh-huh.
for like a couple years.
Okay.
Very hard to tell. I was mistaken as a girl constantly,
Yeah.
probably by most people.
Okay.
Was I a girl?
You were.
And then did I stop being a girl at some point? And if so, when and
I'm
why?
going to invoke
You never
the
have.
gradients of language.
Shut up, Wick.
I'm going to invoke the gradients of language. And I would say, first off, everyone who knew you treated you as a man, right? Or a boy.
No.
Everyone who knew you, they knew you.
Everybody who knew me after I corrected them, after I said,
No.
well, actually,
Your
I might
fucking mom and
present this
teacher
way,
and,
but I'm
and
not.
peer students.
How old were you when you were?
What
a
are you
girl?
talking about? Of course,
I
everyone
was.
who knew
I guess
you
I was
treated
a
you as
girl
boy.
between the fourth grade.
Do you
and,
see what he just did there?
Seventh grade.
I
would
was
say
a girl.
That's when I was a girl, according
Okay.
to Hunter over here.
According to
I
me.
was a girl.
Okay.
Between fourth grade and
There is a
seventh grade.
blurriness here. There's a blurriness here. I would say, obviously, your parents
was
probably
more of a
treated
girl.
you. Is it fair to say your parents treated you as a boy, and
They did.
your teachers, and all of the students
Once-
who knew you, all of your friends?
Once I told them.
Oh my
yes.
God! Yes, sure. But if you take a snapshot of
But
you in your
strangers
life,
didn't.
I understand. I fucking get it. Thanks. I do understand this. It's actually not that weird to me.
Well, hold on. It's
if you take
difficult that you understand this, yet you keep using Hunter Schafer as an example. Where yes, the people who know Hunter Schafer are probably knowing this person's biology and are probably going to treat this person differently than they would a woman, but a stranger might not if they get tricked. So me myself, when I was androgynous, sure, I might have tricked strangers.
Hold on. My question is, specifically with Hunter Schafer. Sorry, I did get lost in this. Hold on one second.
The people who know Hunter Schafer, they
Mhm.
know that Hunter Schafer is trans, right?
Oh, here's my question. What is she hiding genuinely? Because she's pretty open and honest about the fact that she is trans, which essentially means she's open about having the SRY gene. She's open and honest about having XY chromosomes. Like, genuinely, what is
It's
she
a performance.
tricking people? Right. But isn't that just acknowledging that the way that we treat other people in society is downstream of use cases and it's not from biology? Because Hunter is actually pretty open about the fact that her biology doesn't match.
No, look, I agree that Hunter Schafer mitigates a lot of the deception. I think that there is still going to be some deception there. especially if Hunter Schafer
Okay.
refers to themselves as a woman. But I think that a lot of that's going to be mitigated by the fact that they're very open about the fact that they're trans.
Okay, then I have a new question.
Mhm.
Someone with Swire syndrome or something of the sort. Maybe they're not
What is Swire
intentional.
syndrome?
It's
Is
a
that the XY?
DSD. Let me pull up my notes.
I just don't know what it is.
So
I forget the
there's like
specifics.
4 main ones. There is
The
one where
SRY,
somebody
yeah, yeah,
presents.
the
There's
SRY
one where
gene.
somebody presents as a woman, like presents as a phenotypical woman, but is XY. Androgen
Yes,
insensitivity.
yes,
That's like the one that I think Hunter
yes,
is trying to find.
yes. Swire,
Sure.
yeah. There are specific types of androgen insensitivities.
Hmm.
Swire syndrome is one of them where they have XY chromosomes. They have the SRY gene, which is like the very specific gene on the on the Y chromosome that like basically flips on, and a lot of the masculine traits present. Um, they have a typical female phenotype. You might not say that they're intentionally deceiving because they might not even know that
Correct.
they have it. Okay,
Yeah.
but they are if they once they find out. Should they correct people if they start referring to them as she? Like my friend Anna, who has Turner
If it's
syndrome.
relevant, it becomes
It's
relevant.
relevant to what degree? To what
If it
functional
becomes,
basis?
I think it's absolutely relevant when it comes to like any kind of romantic or sexual relationships.
Okay, okay, come on. Okay.
I think it's going
Yeah.
to be
Okay,
important
I
medically.
have a bit of a question.
You should
This is for
probably say, "Hey,
Lactoid.
by the way, I can't have kids." That should probably be something you tell
No,
your
no, I
partner.
think it's more.
But
I think
that's
it's more than that. I think that for most people, I think for the vast majority of people, like it's something that I would want to know, and I think it's for a lot of people
I
who have
think
like, especially people who are religious.
uh
I think that that is a relevant thing for them to find out
Shh.
before they choose to go
Okay.
forward with this
Okay.
person.
Okay. Hold on.
Hold on, I
I
have a
think we're
question now for
smuggling.
you too, Hunter.
Yeah.
I have one for Lactoid and one for you, Hunter. I'll ask
Yeah.
you first, Hunter.
Go for it.
Say, okay, say you were online and you were talking to someone who you believed was a girl,
Hmm.
and you had text
Oh, I got
messages.
catfished.
You had, well, yeah, you had pictures and things. They
Hmm.
sent you pictures, and you're like, oh, it's a girl, and you develop romantic interest in this person as you go, and then later on you find out, oh, this was some guy from India just
Yeah,
pretending.
I got catfished. Yeah.
You would feel a certain kind of way about that, right?
Well,
Like
in
betrayed.
an extreme, in an obvious sense, he was lying. Those aren't pictures of him at all. It's not that. It's not just that. Like
Say
he.
there was no pictures sent, and you just they just said they
What do you mean they weren't pictures of
Wait.
him? He
Then
was
how would I?
presenting them as if they were him.
yeah.
How are you guys on? Wait, are you not on my side, Lactoid? No, no, no. He shows
Well, I'm
pictures
not by your side.
of a chick in a dress in prom with big old boobies, and he goes, "This is me." That's why I would feel dishonest because he
If enough,
lied about
if
who he
enough people
was.
believe that, then it would be him, right?
Hold on.
Hold
That's
on.
no. What?
No,
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 because
no. Stack Sim is your Hunter. Hunter. No,
Hunter.
we didn't.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Hunter.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You
weird.
understand? Like
Yeah.
you're
Dead name.
loading it. Say,
How?
assume, for the sake of the hypothetical,
Uh
that
huh.
he did not give you purposely deceptive pictures, right? That he just looked like a woman, right? He looked very girlish, like tomboyish, right? And
Okay.
you made that mistake.
Uh huh.
But you would still feel betrayed that he wasn't upfront with you about his gender, correct?
No. No. I'll give an
You would.
example. No. 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 I'll give an example because I'll give
Okay.
a real life example that this happened. Um. This is kind of weird. Um. Uh. There was a like forever ago. I hit this person up on Twitter because I thought she looked really cute. She had a profile picture, and it was like this like Indian chick with like very long hair. And then I realized pretty quickly that it was like like an animated avatar that actually like I look at it again and I'm like, I see. That's just an Indian with long hair. That's actually not a woman. And like it was cartoonized, so it's like kind of hard to pick out those sufficient details. But no, I wasn't frustrated with him because he was like, "Oh, hey, you want to just chat?" And I didn't feel frustrated with him because I had no there
Well, you
was
figured it out real quick.
what?
You figured it out
I,
quick from the story, yeah?
the specific example that was given to Hunter, I actually like agree with Hunter. I mean, if there's no actual intent to deceive, it'd be hard to like feel betrayed or to blame them.
Mhm.
But what if there is intent? What if it was the classic example, like somebody who was identified as a trans Hunter and just didn't disclose it, and they were in a dating website and they were saying, "Look, I'm a woman."
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. I think you're smuggling in. Um, uh, okay. Here, let me say this. Let me say this. I know everything about my wife. Okay. including what syndrome she might or might not have. If I'm dating someone and something that prevalent about your identity and situation isn't something that you would communicate, I would certainly go, why? Why didn't you inform me? Because that's probably pretty fucking central to who you are. It seems like you are actually, it's not that you were being not upfront with it. You were actually probably trying to hide it because if you are trans, that is probably a large part of your identity. And why did you hide this for so long?
No, well, there's a slight pivot happening here. I think when it comes to most syndromes or like most health issues or most of everything,
Hmm.
with like first time dates or using these dating websites or hookup apps or anything like this, I don't as long as it's not like communicable or like or there's some kind of like large kind of social component of like why you wouldn't want to have sex with somebody who had different genetics than you thought that they did
Yeah.
in terms of sexual way. I don't think that most people would disclose that. I don't think that's super relevant, I mean, unless they're specifically asked.
So
Right?
I've
I don't think there's like a social. I don't think there's a social convention to disclose that. But if a trans person, if we're talking about like this
Mhm.
person is biologically like okay, let's say I didn't know that Hunter Schafer was trans, and Hunter Schafer just turned out to be less upfront about it. Let's just say,
Mhm.
and then Hunter Schafer goes on Tinder, and I match with Hunter Schafer,
Yeah.
and then I go, and then Hunter Schafer sucks me off. Have I
Uh-huh.
been wronged? Have I been violated
No,
in any way?
I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think so.
Wow.
Genuinely, and I do think that we're often.
I disagree
No. Hold on, because
strongly.
I want to be clear here. I want to be clear here.
I still have the question for
Because
Lactoid, but finish
I
it.
do think that there are ways in which you could be wrong, and I could adjust your situation very slightly, and yeah, they would be in the wrong. Um, First off, whether or not they are post-op or pre-op certainly matters, especially with sexual intercourse. Like if you are expecting, you think it doesn't matter at all.
Not in that hypo. If I'm getting a blowjob,
I understand, which is why I'm saying the like if, but there's also an expectation. I don't know how graphic we can be, Wick. Are we pushing it? I can dial it back, or I can.
No, if you want to talk about blowjobs, you can.
Okay, great.
I like my Rolexes like I like my women, all original parts.
Well, would
Okay.
you still feel
There's definitely an expectation to
Yeah.
start maybe sucking or to be
Definitely not,
to help
bro.
out.
What kind of
No, no, no,
cunt
no,
shit
no,
is
no,
this?
no. Hold on. If a girl sucks your dick, then you're probably like, hey, maybe I should eat you out. That's probably
No, we're there's a long history in this discussion. We are
maybe not an
Okay,
expectation, but it certainly
we are
wouldn't be
going
that
to
weird.
go to the next question because
That's why.
I know
Okay,
where
yeah.
this is going, and that's
Wait.
another
Can I say this?
conversation.
Can I
We
say
can
this?
have this debate another day.
This will be less graphic.
Lactoid.
Okay.
I think I just to put a
Lactoid.
bow on it. I would be very like I would personally feel very deceived. I think for a lot of people, especially if they were religious, I mean this would be a big deal.
I recognize that.
I think that like doing something with this is the case with stealthing. This is the case with almost anything where if you have some belief, some reason to believe that this person would not be okay with you doing this, and you know this or have reason to believe this because most people in society don't actually see trans women as women. I'm sorry. So you thus have reason to believe that most people would have a problem with this, or that it would be relevant to most people's decisions here, and you don't disclose that. I
Mhm.
think that's active deception. Just like if you like pull out a condom and then like sort
Yeah,
of
I
like
get what
make
stealthing
it
is.
look like
Yeah.
you're putting one on, but you don't actually put one
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
like that's this person would have a problem with it. It doesn't need to be explicit. It's implicit. It's implicit deception. Anyway, go.
I totally agree with you though, is the thing. Is like we
Thank
would
you.
have to parse out very specific details in which it's the
Just
case.
clip that part out.
I have dated. Look, I'm bi. Okay, I've dated some trans women, and they have been very upfront. They're like, "Hey, are you bisexual?" Because like that would make things a lot easier just to make sure that you are cool with this. And
Most are
also,
probably upfront. Sure.
yeah, and I would always suggest to be upfront about that kind of stuff because yeah, people could be violent if they feel like they've been deceived, especially sexually. Like they feel like they've been sexually assaulted. It's a very serious like trans people should be upfront when it comes to dating about what specifically they are, mostly because of reactions that some people
And
might feel deceived.
and just a consistency check. It's not my question I had for you, Lactoid, but you would also feel the same, say, if someone, a woman, right? Let's take the trans out of it. A woman's like, yeah, I believe in libertarianism, and that led you to the situation where she's sucking your dick. And then you found out later she was just saying that to suck your dick. You'd still feel deceived. It would be just as wrong.
In a world where you are really only dating You only
Yeah, where
want
you're only dating libertarians or only
libertarians. That's your.
you don't want to date. Like say you never want to date a communist,
Mhm.
right? You're an anti-communist
She's
guy. You
like,
never want to date a communist. You never wanted a communist to touch you. And then someone, in order to suck your dick, pretends not to be a communist in order to suck your dick. That'd be just as bad as a
That'd be wrong.
deception.
okay, I would say
At the
That'd be
same
wrong. And
level?
this actually did happen, by the way. There on the internet for a little while. There was people who were basically saying like, "Oh, I voted for Trump, but I'm gonna like get with anti-Trump chicks and say that I didn't." I thought that was fucked up.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
messed
Just
up.
making sure. My actual question for you, Lectoid, right? Um, Technology advances all the time. We get to a world where people can download themselves into the mainframe, right? Like where they could download themselves into a robot body, right? Like you've seen the robot bodies and Elon Musk where they're doing that thing. Um, say I did or say you did that. Would you still consider yourself a man? Why or why not?
If I was no longer a biological entity, I would no longer be a man. I'd be some kind of genderless program,
Yeah, but no,
I
hold on. Here's the issue
sexless
here.
program.
Here's the issue here.
I wouldn't be a
You would
man.
have to immediately recognize, and I hope that you immediately recognize that our definition of man would morph. As soon as that possibility occurs, we would start talking
and then it
about
wouldn't
man
be man.
in a
Yeah,
different.
but we're talking
Yes!
about what is a woman now in our social convention. We're not
Okay.
talking about in the future some
Imagine
linguistic change.
Okay, imagine you are also there. I don't know what else to say.
No, Hunter. Yeah, in the future, man could shift to mean something entirely different. In the future, cat could shift to mean something entirely different. Anything could shift to mean something entirely different. I don't disagree. But I'm saying that currently, under the definition of man and woman that I've presented, that
Uh-huh.
the vast majority of people subscribe to, that has very real utilitarian benefits when it comes to almost every prescription of society, not just when it comes to like sexual intercourse or when it comes to dating, but also when it comes to prisons and sports and all these other things that has
Mhm.
real political issues. When it comes to all of this is very relevant. And this language is important. This language actually matters, going back to what we said before. But if we all get uploaded to some cloud where all of a sudden these differences become irrelevant, yeah, I would agree that the usage of man and woman would probably start to fall off, and we'd probably just stop using it,
Okay, cool. So
it would
I don't know.
morph to mean something
I'd still
entirely
consider
different.
myself a man when I downloaded myself into the mainframe. I would still consider myself a man, right?
even though you have your
That's
Why?
me.
brain, or even
Why?
But it's part of my identity, right? It's
But
something
what if?
that I have been all my life, and I have centered at least part of my identity and who I am around being a man and doing things that a man would, at least as I understand them. Um, I would still
Like what?
consider myself a man, and I think society would probably do so as well.
I think so
I
too.
don't think so. I think if you were uploaded to the cloud, I think that in a world in which
It would be a bunch of they thems.
there becomes no reasons for like any kind of sex distinction anymore, then I think that over time, like yeah, there might be a little bit of like some relic happening where people like be might like say, oh, this person did phenotypically have, and so there's some kind of continuity of language that we're going to roll with. But I think that's going to stop. I think it's going to stop relatively quickly because there's going to be there's going to be no point anymore, right? If everybody's in robot bodies and all of our brains are in the cloud
I think there'd be
and
plenty of
everything,
points,
okay, there's
right?
no hormones anymore. So
Hold
that's
on. I think
hormones
that
no
the
longer affect
gender
our
roles
thinking.
would still exist and it would still be enforced. They very much might change, but there would be different gender roles and different positions that people would play,
With the
right,
absence
in
of hormones
society.
and bodies?
Yes, I think
But
that's would happen just
Yeah,
by
there's
how
a
highly
people
there's a
behave.
weird question of if like sex would even happen without the hormones rushing through your your.
Hold on. We're in
I'm
robot
not even
bodies,
talking
so
about
sex.
I'm not talking about
Yeah.
sex. I'm talking
No,
about
I know,
behavior.
but yeah. But a lot of gender is
Because a lot of what
predicated on
makes
sexual
someone a
norms.
man, right, in different societies has not been sex. And some it has,
Yeah,
right?
this is a
But a
this
lot of
is
times, like when you ask what is a man in a certain like society, they won't even mention sex.
I will
It'll
say
just be the behavior that they engage in. And my argument here is that
All
even
that
if
stems
I
down
was
to
in a
sex.
robot body, I would behave in ways that are
No,
consistent. The society would view a man.
this is I got a big the root of all of that comes down to the biology. I think there's a reason why among all societies there is a consistent social treatment of like difference in social treatment between men and women. Why like in large part of this is because the different bodies and the different like physical like the hormones and the different abilities that we possess influence our social place, influence our social standing for sure. in general, right? And so when women are going to be the child rearers and they're the ones that can give birth, like yeah, their dating rituals are going to be very different
Okay,
because
I
the consequences for them is going to be very different if they get pregnant. Their expected role
Hold
is going
on.
to be very
I
different
okay.
as
understand that
being a
your
Can we?
childbearer,
argument.
all these different things,
I
and the
understand, and I
societal
even
right the
I even
societal convention
agree.
is based on this, and so if that goes away, the societal conventions are going to go away too.
I don't think they go away. I think they change, but I don't think they go away. I think the societal conventions will still exist. There will still be gender roles. There will still be different behaviors that
Based
different
on what?
members of society are expected to behave as, but it will look different. That is true, right? But I don't think that they will cease to exist.
Okay, I have a question,
I
Lactoid.
disagree, but what's up?
I kind of want to pivot the conversation a little bit because you keep asserting your definition as consistent and clear and a bunch of different things.
It is
Do
the
you think
most consistent and most clear.
do you think that my definition is inconsistent?
So hold on a second. I think the self ID one is inconsistent. Just to be
Sure.
clear,
I would probably
But the societal performance one,
wait.
I've heard
Why is self ID inconsistent?
because it's not defining something other than itself. It's
Okay,
circular.
I could pull up a definition of a sandwich, and the definition of a sandwich is something that resembles a sandwich. That's Merriam-Webster's definition. Is that
Yeah,
circular?
that's not how I would define it. And by the way, legally, that's actually not how it was defined. There was a lawsuit about what the definition of a sandwich was. It was between, I think it was Qdoba and Panera Bread. And they were indeed, there was a discussion as to what is the thing that's being defined here. Because when we're talking about a sandwich, the contract, basically, Panera Bread had an exclusive contract to serve sandwiches within a
Hmm.
mall.
There's a certain
And
expectation. I understand that you can't
yeah,
just
yeah.
say that.
There's a social expect. There's an understanding, a contextual understanding, like we said before,
Yeah.
what a sandwich is.
Hmm.
And when we talk about it, it is defining something. It is defining something. And what is that? Well, a Qdoba moved in and they started selling burritos.
Hmm.
And then Panera sued and said, well, hold on a second. This is bullshit. We're a burrito is a sandwich. There's flour around it, and then there's meat. Blah blah blah
Okay.
blah. It's
I
basically a sandwich. And the court ruled, no, it's not. The court ruled that when we're referring to a sandwich, there is a specific category of food item that we're referring to.
yeah. I think
Typically, two pieces of bread with some kind of savory mixture or vegetables in between, and then the two pieces of bread placed on top of each other, and that's the definition of sandwich.
yeah.
Burrito does not
I
fit the definition of sandwich.
Okay, cool. Sorry. I do want to say that this is one of the big issues that I have with the way that people treat definitions. I think what you're essentially saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying self ID doesn't is inconsistent, which by the way, I would say that it's consistent but probably not useful. It's probably not what I would suggest, but there are certain circumstances which I would say that self ID is helpful.
It's
Um,
consistent but not useful.
yes, that's the construction I would use. I want to be clear. You're saying the
I mean,
reason why it's
I don't know.
inconsistent is because if you define woman to be someone who identifies as a woman, then essentially you're saying someone who identifies as a someone who identifies a someone, and it's infinite regress, right? Because if you ever try to
Yeah, yeah,
transplant
yeah. It's
woman into the
the classic
definition,
question is like,
it
so
it's
someone
fucked.
identifies as a woman, and then you ask like, well, what is that you're identifying as? And the
Mhm.
response is, well, a woman. And what's that? What is that? Well, it's whoever is defined as a woman.
Here's my
And then
issue.
what is that? And then it's perpetual.
Here's my issue with this. Two things. First off,
And by the way, I might be using inconsistent wrong, but I'm just going to
that's fine.
redefine it to
That's
mean
fine.
that. So,
Sure.
because there's no such thing as wrong definitions. Go
Yes.
ahead.
First thing, I reject the ability to supplant definitions into phrases. That's not how any definition works. If you try looking up any definition of any word and then supplanting that into a sentence and then trying to read that as if that suddenly makes sense, it won't. Because prototype theory sort of stipulates that a definition is just trying to get the entire cluster concept, but each individual member is still just a point in that cluster. So you can't actually supplant that entire cluster into just one, and every time that you do so it's going to be completely infeasible. You can't just take a definition and just put it into the sentence. That's just, we can try it and I'll show you that it doesn't work.
No, but hold on. But with sufficient words, like you could, if you've got some cluster with sufficient words and enough information, you could go through and describe everything that fits a particular definition. But if it's in self-defining, you couldn't. Even if you had infinite
Mm,
words, infinite time, and infinite knowledge, you would if your definition of woman is what like anybody who defines himself as a woman, if that's like the sole, if that is the definition,
that we're
as
not going to
by
arrive at
definition
all of
self
the
ID must
information.
be, you could never get to any part of the cluster.
fully disagree that that essentially what you're doing with the definition. Okay, let's look at your.
So what is
Hold on,
so
hold
under
on, no, no,
self
no,
ID,
no, no,
what
no,
is a
no,
woman?
Let-
no, no,
let
no, no.
Hunter go, let
Stop,
Hunter go,
stop,
please.
Fair enough.
stop.
Fair enough.
You
fair enough.
defined a woman as a adult human female. Yes.
Adult biological human.
Okay, cool. That
And then I gave
biological
an expanded
definition. That biological definition will never arrive at the social context that a woman occupies. You're going to completely miss that.
No.
You're gonna get fucking that girls like pink and boys like blue out of biology.
No, hold on. No. I'm not, hold on. I'm not going to completely miss it. At most, you could say that there's there's social conventions that correlate with this, but there's some social conventions that aren't going to for every individual.
Yeah, so you're going to
That's
miss some
that,
through
that-
that
that's the most you
definition.
can say. But here's the thing: my definition of woman is not based on the social conventions. That's why it's more clear and concise.
Okay.
You could have women that like blue. You could
Okay.
have women with short hair.
I
You
understand,
can have
but that-
women that go are lumberjacks
Yes.
and chop down wood, and they're still women.
Yes,
under my
I
definition.
agree. No. Under mine too. The way that language functions is this is something that Wittgenstein called family resemblances. Essentially, that you look at a thing and you're like, oh, that has the same nose as this, and this is the same eyes as this. There is no sufficient or necessary resemblance that you need towards the archetype in order to determine if something is a member of that group. You just essentially it needs to look similar enough, and those similarities can be on a bunch of different axes. But the second thing I want to point to,
Not under my
is-
definition.
we talked a lot about building axioms from building arguments from axioms. Do you recognize, because I will assert that it is true, there are no axioms of language? There is no place to anchor the English language. The doesn't necessarily need to mean the. All meanings can shift wherever they want, and everything
know if that's true.
necessary. Yes, it is. Okay, what would you?
No,
What do you think is the
hold on.
axiom of language?
Axioms can change. People can shift their axioms.
Okay, there are no axioms of language, though. What's your starting
I don't-
point? How do you build the English language?
you
This is-
presuppose that the word because means in terms of some kind of causal. Yeah, you have to use the English language, I guess here.
So I'll
But,
say that there was a
Like,
bunch of
you can presuppose that these terms mean something. I don't. Well, here's the thing. I do think that language is an intersubjective exercise that requires presupposing certain things. I don't know if that fits the term of axiom here. It could.
okay.
So I'm going to be agnostic towards whether or not there
Okay.
are no axioms in
Okay,
language.
I think
If
really what I'm
there's a different
asserting.
definition, then I can go with that.
I think really what I'm asserting is that language in itself is all connected towards each other with different nodes and things. But those connections can vary and they can shift in different ways, and not a single node of that is anchored down to a specific location. So I feel like Lactoid would say, "Oh, well then it should just shift wherever it wants." That's what Hunter is saying. And I'm saying, "Well, those connections need to be reified through social negotiation over and over and over again, so it's less likely for it to shift, and it seems to be functional enough
I
that we
understand.
make it
I
work."
understand.
Okay,
I don't
$5,
disagree.
just real quick. $5 from Hedonic Samuel says Staxiums is the man.
Wrecked.
Lactose
Couldn't
is a
get
woman.
fucking dead named.
True.
Yeah, your own
super
fucking
chat is what they said.
Blaze,
Don't blame me.
Blaze super
Fine.
chat dead names Hunter. Okay. I don't disagree. I understand the point that you're making, Hunter.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that I appeal to very specific societal interests when I am asserting this as the
Okay.
definition.
Yes. Like
One of which is having the inherent the value of having a clear and concise definition that is less blurry.
Okay.
I also
Hold on,
appeal
let's
to the
get to this because
I also appeal to medical convention and social convention.
I
But
want
that
this to be an
first one,
actual-
that first one, I think is important because the whole reason why we had that discussion is because you asked me, do you think my definition is inconsistent? And then I brought up my little notepad and I said the self ID one I think is.
Mhm.
Where I
Let me
said,
just ask this to both.
because unlike hold on real quick, unlike my definition, which is biological, and
Mhm.
unlike the definition that has been mostly proposed, which is societal performance, which I think are they don't have the same problem as self ID does because they
Mhm.
are actually pointing to some kind of definition. They're pointing to some actual thing that's being described. There's something that has traits outside of the definition. Societal
Mhm.
performance does and biology does. Self ID doesn't. Right?
Sure.
Anything could be self ID. A cat is whoever identifies as a cat, or whatever identifies as a cat,
I
or
agree,
whatever
and that's
thinks it's a cat.
I want to be clear. I
Okay,
only invoke
I-
self ID when it comes to
Gender?
no institutions like government. Like if you're signing a slip, then obviously we're gonna have to use self ID in the same way that we always use self ID. We use self ID for
Okay.
race when it comes to like signing slips.
Yeah,
filling
but
out
you could
forms.
lie on that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
hold on,
So that there is the truth.
please.
There is still a definition that we're
No,
referring
no,
to.
no, no, no,
as
no,
opposed-
no, 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 no. There's not a capital T truth, but there's a recognition that society might treat you in a different way than what you're writing on
but
that form.
no, that's the truth we're talking about.
I understand. So
Why?
okay, so then yes,
Okay,
yes,
both
they
of you
could
shut
lie
up.
on that form.
Both of you shut up, because
Thank
this
you.
this is going in circles, and I want to make sure that we get to actual meat as we go, right?
We're kind of talking about me right
Um,
now.
Why? And this is to both of you. I'm going to let Hunter start, and I'm going to
Mhm.
let Actoid answer after. Why should society, or what benefit? How would society be better if we adopted your definition of what a woman is?
Yeah, that's a great question, and what I'm going to invoke is that
What was your definition, by the way, Hunter?
those who exhibit feminine traits. I don't know. I'd probably do something like that. I could quibble on that for sure, but it would be something like, um, yeah, if you share enough feminine traits. Sorry. Why would I invoke that? Why is society better off for that? I would.
Yeah, why would society be better off if
Yeah.
they took your approach?
I
to this
believe.
question?
I believe, and this is something that I don't want to. I don't have all the data for. I don't have all the stats for. But I do believe that medical institutions largely recognize that social acceptance of transgender individuals lowers suicidality. That's the first point. The second point that I'm going to have is that, largely speaking, this is how people interact with women in the world. Is just essentially looking at it's through it's essentially easier for people. It maps onto people's categories a little bit easier than what Lactoid is suggesting. But I would probably invoke that first one. And if that
Okay,
first one
so-
goes away, I'd be happy to go with Lactoids.
Specifically, if I could just repeat what I just heard,
Yep.
your first point is that by adopting, if society took your approach to this question, you would have less suicidality amongst trans individuals. And your second point was that it would just make it easier for society to deal with women. Is that the
Sure. Can I
Answer?
clarify specifically?
Yes, you can. That's why I'm repeating
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
in
yeah.
case I got it
I
wrong.
fully
you
agree.
can
I fully agree
clarify.
with how you clarified one. What I usually point to bathrooms on this and say conservatives are the weird ones when it comes to bathrooms. That the way historically we've always dealt with bathrooms is through looking at someone, and if they don't look like a woman, we're like, what the fuck? That's how it works. We don't check genitals at this like fucking charging station like conservatives often want us to.
Hold on, they don't? I got some questions.
I
now
got some
for
questions,
how to
too.
move in my life.
Yeah, but like I had, I think that conservatives reassert this idea of gender enforcement at the bathroom that is incompatible with how historically we have always functioned. Like, I'll give an example. My actually, my philosophy teacher was a trans woman, and she always used the women's bathroom until Utah passed a law citing that if you are a biological male found within a woman, you will be fined. And essentially, she had to go into the men's bathroom, and it was very weird for a lot of people. And she kept saying like, I go in the bathroom, and everyone's like, "What the hell are you doing here?" Because she presents fully as a woman,
Yeah, fair.
and it's like when you assert these through a biological lens, you often get very warped. It's just easier through my lens. That's what
Fair
I'm saying.
enough. Okay. Thank you for your answer. Lactoid, same question to you. How would society be better off if it adopted your approach to answering this question?
Yeah, I have the advantage of going second. So I'm gonna first appeal to my intro. I think it has a few contradictions, is the most globally accepted, and provides us the most utility in terms of social interaction and actual purpose of sex distinctions. And then I'm gonna go through almost everything that Hunter just said and describe where my mind is better. Hunter said those who exhibit more feminine traits. I think that this is less clear because there's far more of subjective disagreement as to what feminine traits are. It's also far less accepted by most people. The vast majority of people within society are going to be much more willing to accept a masculine woman as still a woman and a feminine man as still a man. They're just going to describe them as like a little bit of like a sissy man perhaps, or like a feminine man, and then like a butch woman, right? Those are the terms that people generally use. These are the terms that people are generally comfortable with. I think that Hunter's definition is far less important or far less useful when it comes to important social structures like medical designation, which we talked about before.
But
And I
mine,
got somewhat of a designation on, or somewhat of a concession on specifically in terms of medical designation outside of the social convention. But I think that within that social convention, it's also important. Romantic and sexual relationships. I think that the vast majority of people within America actually do see the biological answer that I gave as more useful in terms of romantic and sexual interactions, besides perhaps
How
some
would you?
small community of.
Yep.
We just click for a second. The small community of, I think, more left-leaning people, very left-leaning people, perhaps. Social interaction generally, prisons and prison safety, women's sports, spas and waxing clinics. We're seeing lawsuits like that happening in Canada, and the bathroom thing. I think it's clear that this is not just like this is a impositional project, right? It is an imposition on language. The imposition is the social structure. We have to engage in some kind of level of social engineering and shift the social structure to accommodate a very small group of people. Where I would argue that the small group of people, in a second, it's somewhat irrelevant to the topic, but in a second, there's a lot of other issues going on with this very small group of people. When it comes to bathrooms, I would agree. I don't think anybody's like actually checking people's genitals. That would surprise me. I know
no,
that
no,
this
no.
is
Yeah,
like
they're not.
this is the thing that people bring up, like, oh, you're going to check people's genitals. And yeah, historically, we haven't had to do this because historically, transgenderism is a relatively new thing in terms of being within social vogue. And even now, within social vogue, it's a very small group of people, and has largely exploded around the same time as social media exploded, around 2014. Beforehand, if you want to go back in the day, this was probably bathroom issue probably wasn't even an issue because trans people you're going to find an occasional person. You're going to find an occasional person. There's examples.
Sure,
I'm
I
sure you're going to
obviously
bring
agree
up
that
some
there are more
historical
trans.
person for San Francisco,
I'll
but
concede
this
all
wasn't an
this.
issue. Yeah, this wasn't an issue. And so, yeah,
Sure, but-
obviously we're going to have
okay.
to like deal with defending social institutions and social conventions against threats to those social institutions and social conventions. Of course.
Here's my
$5,
question. then.
just real quick. $5 from Hedonic Samuel to say, to quote Jordan Peterson, if you want to know what a woman is, marry one and find out. Parentheses. It's a good answer, even if he's lost his mind.
I low-key
End
agree.
parentheses.
Like,
Did he
like,
actually say that?
understand? Yeah, I, think
I don't know if he actually said that.
No, he
I'm
did say
just
that. I remember
reading the super chat.
that.
I don't like that answer.
Yeah, I know. So here's my question: what do you suggest that we do with bathrooms? Because you have to recognize a lot of people are transgender now. Not a lot, but like a proportion of society. I think they're at what, like 2% of the population.
Yeah. Well,
That's
here's what you
15
do.
million people.
Yeah, you make it a rule, and like you enforce that rule to like whatever extent that is like appropriate, socially appropriate.
Sorry, 6
How
million.
I would enforce it. How I would enforce it.
Mhm.
Sports, I would just be like, we're just stopping that. Easy ban on that one. When it comes to bathrooms, I'm not in favor of the whole like checking people's genitals before they go in, but you simply have it
so-
like, look, this is like this is the men's room, this is the women's room.
Mhm.
Are there going to be people who break the rules? Sure. I've seen drunk men walk into the women's room.
Okay.
This happens. But like, what you do is you don't let these people sue the private company for like having this rule. That's what you do.
What a non-answer.
You don't have you don't have it in can. No, this is not a non-answer. I'm saying
Yes,
you have
it
the
is.
rule, and then you enforce the rule to whatever extent is socially acceptable.
No,
I'm not
but
saying
how
putting
do you
people in
enforce
prison.
that rule? How could you? All you
I-
have,
look,
all
yeah.
you have is a basis of how they appear.
Yes,
You don't
I
have
would
their
agree.
chromosomes.
Look, this is how you enforce a rule. There are certain rules that are very difficult to enforce.
Mhm.
I don't disagree. If
Or
the
define.
restaurant sees somebody going into the bathroom that is like very like masculine presenting, because
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the vast majority of trans people you can tell. There's some
Okay.
exceptions, but you got to look at the exceptions, of course. The
Okay.
vast majority you can tell. And if they say, look, I don't want you in there, you're making other people uncomfortable, or this is a woman's only gym, I don't want you here, or this is a woman's only spa, I don't want you here, you have to leave.
Dope. I have a
Then,
question.
then they leave or they get trespassed, and they don't get to sue them
Awesome.
under some kind of human rights statute that
I got it.
location has put forward.
I have a question.
That's how
about
you
this.
enforce it.
Cool.
What if they want a
Do
whites
you
only
recognize?
spa?
Okay.
You know my belief in that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's pro whites only. He just believes that would be pushed out of society because
I wouldn't eat there. I
Yeah, you
wouldn't eat at the
eat
whites
there.
only bar.
and enough people would.
You know,
that it
you
would
Well, you're
go into
not
have a
white.
blacks
business.
only bar too.
Hassan
Okay.
would eat there, but not you. You're not white. So
Why is he not white?
society doesn't see lactoid as white.
True. Okay,
Oh,
Lactoid, here's the question, and here's like the real issue with a lot of this. Do you recognize that there are not uh it's not an insubstantial amount of people who are cis and are not do not present as such? Like you as the little boy and you go into the boys' room. Do you think that the restaurant owner should start yelling at you because he thinks that you're a girl?
The restaurant owner should have the right to kick me out. If the restaurant owner now, when it comes to children, I think that the vast majority of places I know, and I think this should socially be the case, that children just simply don't pose the risks that adult men do, and they don't make women
Okay.
uncomfortable in the same way that adult men
Okay.
do.
Come on.
And so I think that nobody's going to care about like a
You know
child
that's not
going
my
in there.
question. You know that's not my
But
question
no,
because I
yes,
can
yeah,
extend
but
that
the
onto
answer, yes,
adults.
okay, but I'm challenging the framing of the question, but then I will answer the question directly, like
Okay,
I always
cool.
do, like I
Okay,
always do.
great.
Yes, the restaurant should be able to kick me out. And the
Okay.
restaurant and rules are sometimes mistakenly enforced. Sometimes you arrest the guy who didn't do the crime. This is not an argument against having rules.
Okay. Okay. Here's my issue
Sometimes
though.
you get it wrong. Hold on, real quick. Do you concede that sometimes you get it wrong, but this is not an argument against having rules?
Sure, yes, but I'm gonna have
Hold
to
on, hold
compare it
on. But
against
if
my
you have
system.
a rule
Thank
in
you.
place that is consistently being misenforced, right? There would probably be something either in the way we are enforcing it, the way we're defining that rule, the way that we're interpreting that rule that we might want to change. Correct?
It's almost like we have
But
a
historically, I don't think this rule has been misenforced. I think
no.
that
Come on, but
if you
wait,
if,
but
you- no, no, if you go back through all of history, business owners were of course free to kick out somebody out of their store
I
because they thought they were
understand that,
using the
but
women's restroom.
we should probably allow for a society that is a little bit more understanding of people that maybe don't fit our protocol, our prototypical understanding of what a man and a woman looks like, because there are plenty
Private
of people who
company could do
sit
that.
outside of that spectrum, and like, what are they supposed to do? Like, there's a really good example. I forget the name. It was in
This
a
never
contract.
was a problem, like you pointed out.
No. It was never a problem to you or to me or to Wick because we all
Sorry,
look
or
like
the
men.
vast majority.
I agree. And I would say here's maybe this is a concession. I don't know. I don't think it is. Our systems of how we determine how men are and women are largely the exact same. They are very, 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 very compatible. We have to look at the margins when we determine this because I would say, okay, well, me, you, and Wick are all men. And you would say, me, Hunter, and Wick are all men. And for the vast
Hold on.
majority of people,
A
we're all
new
going
poll.
to agree.
First of all, new poll. Who is the most manly of all three? To the winning poll, there's 56 votes in. Lactoid's winning with 55%, and we're gonna end that now. I'm gonna put a new poll in, but go ahead.
It's cheating because I don't have a beard.
Probably, but
Or a V-neck.
anyway, new poll. I'm gonna give you three options: Wick, Lactoid, or Hunter, and you get to decide who
Of course
is
they're gonna vote for
the
you,
most
Wick.
manly.
No, but this
Totally unfair.
this is a great example of like of the gradients of categories here. That like we can't say who is the most man. There's this famous example of Eleanor Roche, this linguist, did this study because before then Aristotle posited that all categories can fit into necessary and sufficient conditions, and Eleanor Roche had this question like, how furniture is this object? And that sounds completely nonsensical, and maybe you'll just concede this whole thing and I can brush past it, but we just don't think in necessary and sufficient conditions. Largely how we organize things is with blurriness, because I'll just give she gave like sofa, desk, chair, telephone, things that like exist that we would largely call furniture, and people are remarkably this is a meaningful question to them, that they could say that a sofa is more furniture than a telephone. And also, this is consistent amongst most people. Like almost everyone agrees that a sofa is more furniture than a telephone. Like this gets reified constantly through negotiation. Anyway, I don't know if that's
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
that's
think
not meaningful at all to you.
even if I had a complete like feminine meltdown right now, which I'm not gonna have. I think we've had a pretty relaxed conversation thus far. But if I had a complete,
You'd
feminine
probably rank
meltdown,
last. You'd probably rank last on the poll.
I'd probably rank last.
Uh-huh.
But it wouldn't make me a woman.
I
Like,
agree.
Like actually,
I agree.
You might
It's
call
not-
me. You might call me a woman.
It probably
as an
doesn't mean the
insult.
threshold because you have all family resemblances except your meltdown.
No, but I could do anything. I could do any behavior
Any
right now.
individual
and I
behavior,
would still be
sure,
a man.
because it's a cluster of categories. If you hit
No,
everything though, and you
Then I'm still
shave
a
your
man.
beard, you have makeup,
Shave
you
my
have
beard.
long
Yeah.
hair,
Right now,
you
yeah.
like
Okay.
you
Well, hold on.
get facial
I'm
reconstruction surgery to look more feminine.
okay. Hold on. I don't think you want to go down that road where you think facial reconstruction surgery is going to be the required. Okay.
It's not the
Let's
requirement.
just
That wasn't my point. I was
let's
saying
stick.
that you would,
Hold on. Wait. Let's stick with it. Like what I think that you would define as sufficient for other trans people. Okay.
okay.
If right now I pulled out a razor and I shaved my beard, then I pulled out a makeup kit right now on this very panel, and then I did a whole bunch of makeup, and then I started like having a feminine kind of breakdown, and I started like talking about how these men are evil and how these men like they get all upset,
Do it,
and
and let's
how
find out.
and I start complaining about how men don't eat out pussy, like all this, very
Mhm.
very woman coded shit, right?
Yeah,
I start talking
I'm
about
with you.
horses or whatever the fuck women talk about. Yeah,
I
and I start going, and then you would say, Lactoid, you really are a woman. Is that what you would say?
no. Here,
Let's find out. Do it.
I'm
Science,
out.
bitch. Let's
We
go.
would need a very large donation.
So there is a sufficient donation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, they're
We just have
asking.
to find
Lefty
that.
Waterkai is asking, how much do we have to pay to make this happen?
Yeah, it's
We'll
too
split
much.
It, me and
Your
you.
audience can't. No, your audience.
Okay,
can't
we'll
afford
split it. Me and you. Well,
No,
give
I'm
me a
saying
figure.
we're
It's a
talking
good
about
question.
amounts that for me to do that would be like extraordinarily.
10 grand. Would you do it for 10 grand?
10 grand for me. I don't have any makeup.
You would go. I would keep this stream open, and you could go get the fucking makeup for 10 fucking grand. Okay.
So here's the
No,
thing.
why
Here's
not?
the thing, Lactoid.
I'll do it.
I'm probably gonna bite a bullet here.
It's great.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Go
this
ahead.
is gonna make me look transphobic for sure. Okay. So like there is some gradients to this.
My goal.
Yeah, true. Look, my fiat is don't be a dick. But would I recognize that if you wore a dress and makeup and shaved your beard and was like actively trying to look like a woman, even though you really weren't passing, like most people look at you and they go, that looks like a man in a dress. It looks like a man who's trying to look like a woman. You would be certainly more of a man than a woman because you are societally treated as such.
No, look. Hold on. First of all, I'm gonna say two things. There's gonna be a lot of trans people that are pissed at you about that.
I
opinion.
understand, but wait,
They
hold
hated
on,
me
hold on,
already.
hold on.
But,
To those people, I would say, don't you agree that people are treating? Hold on, don't you agree that people would be treating you less as a woman and more as a man? And if you understand that my ontology, my reality is just how people treat you, then this isn't a prescription. This isn't a prescription. This is just a description that the way that society functions currently is largely you are going to be seen more as a man than a woman. However, I would say, don't be a dick. If you could tell that someone's being trying to look like a woman, just be nice and say she, okay? That's my prescription.
Okay. So, a couple things.
Yeah.
There's the first thing, which I mean, fair enough. You're never gonna make them all happy. I think most. My guess is, and I actually haven't seen research on this, so I could just be flat wrong. This is just my guess. This is just my
Yeah,
intuition.
go for it.
My intuition is most people who are transgendered probably go off self ID. They probably are going off this sort of like that's their belief. Like
I
their
don't agree
belief
with
is
this at all.
if somebody says they are the thing, then they actually are. That's what I think it is.
And I want to be clear.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I want to be clear. It is very possible because how I've arrived at this conclusion is I have two very close trans friends who I have conversations with a lot about this kind of stuff, and maybe it's being filtered through their way of looking at this. But yeah, they get very frustrated with like, oh, what's you're just saying you can just look like if I just declare I'm a woman, I'm suddenly a woman. Come on, there definitely has to be some recognition or presentation to
Well,
get
they would
to
call that
And
insincere. They would say that if you
Yes,
sincerely call yourself a
yes.
woman, then you are.
Well, if you sincerely, I think that's a way to brush past the point because they would say if you're sincere about it, you would actively try. You'd want to get surgery. You'd want to shave your beard. You would want to, and maybe you don't have the money necessarily, but you would do a
that's what they're
lot
gonna
in
say.
your power
Well,
to be treated as a woman.
privilege. You're saying
No,
as a white man, it's
you
your privilege to be.
okay? Jesus Christ. You're not. We're not arguing with those people right now. Okay, this is why this is 4 years down the line.
I know
where
we're
those
not
people
arguing
aren't here
with them.
anymore.
Okay,
Okay,
I know we're not arguing with those people. I was simply saying, you're going to piss those people. I'm just making an observation.
I'm saying
those
I'm
people are
saying
gonna be pissed
the
off about
trans
that.
people I know
They
fully
hate me
agree
too.
with me.
I'm glad that
Okay.
they will
And
still like
I
you.
could be biased,
But the
and
second thing I
I
wanted to
only
make-
have a small. There's only a small It's only a small percentage, right? It's anecdotal
Right.
data.
Well, it's a
That's all
small
I have.
percentage of a small percentage. I
Yeah,
understand.
and I
But
would
this-
say
but
I
this-
would say
some
there's a
housekeeping stuff. Housekeeping stuff. So first of all, we are running into time soon, so we're gonna be winding this down. Unless you guys start ponying up, open up your wallets, get some donations in, and then we might open this up for call-ins if the two people are amenable. Also, they didn't super chat this, but this is funny. Karen D Hippie says, "I'd like Hunter to be my chair right now." So cool.
hell yeah.
However,
He's a
unfortunately for
married
Hunter,
man. You.
in the
Go
poll,
ahead.
who is the most man? Hunter's in distant third at 11%. Lactoid is
Ooh.
second with 33%.
I knew
And
Wick
of
was going
course,
to get it.
Wick as the most
Biased
man
audience.
with 56%. Okay. So anyway, but yeah, just like kind of like a 10-minute warning here that we're
Cool.
gonna be winding down soon. Go ahead.
That's fine.
I forgot.
But
specifically where we were
so
going.
yeah, no, it's I'll try to get it back on track to where the last point that was made. So I think I said most of them are probably self ID. You're saying that within
I don't
your
think that's true.
anecdotal, sure.
Yeah.
And we're going off of like a competing anecdotal
I
experience
agree.
because
I
I haven't
agree.
seen any
You
stats
could be
on this.
right.
My
Wait,
experience
could I say?
has been-
Could I just say you are also listening to the loudest trans people who are usually the most
who are
about this.
angry at me.
Yes.
Right. So they're going to be
yes.
very loud.
There's
Yeah.
a survivorship bias to this. Not saying you're necessarily wrong.
I'm not going to make
but
that joke. I'm not going to make that
shut
joke.
the fuck up.
Anyway,
That's
so
crazy.
you have.
That's
I mean, he
crazy,
made a
bro.
Charlie Kirk joke before. I mean, that was fucked up.
Yeah.
Brush past that. Okay. Anyway,
I didn't brush past it. I said Jesus Christ. That's
You did.
Come on.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. Look, you have. Yeah. Anyway, so
I also am
the first.
unfortunately used to those jokes a little bit more.
I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was a horrible experience. Anyway,
It's all good. Continue.
in my anecdotal experience, most appear to be self ID.
Yeah.
Now, I would agree that there could be some difference here. It could be that, I mean, there clearly appears to be a correlation between identifying as transgender and the want to participate in some kind of performance. I think that's obviously clear. Like they're obvious, and that could be because I think what a lot of trans people, their belief probably is like, well, I am this, but I just need to like convince people that I am this, and the best way to do that is through some kind of performance.
Right. That's not what I would say, but that is probably.
But in some ways, they are appealing to some kind of like underlying definition that's not based on a performance.
Yes.
Which I am too, but I'm actually appealing to something concrete as appealing to something that's entirely nebulous. Nebulous instead of inconsistent, I think, is a better term.
Sure.
I'm appealing to something concrete instead of something entirely nebulous.
Sure. And I would say, just as an anti-realist, I would probably say there's nothing to anchor this into like reality. There's nothing to point to specifically. So I would say like this ontology that like you are a woman and that is like how you are, that's like a real thing that we could point to or assert, I think is nonsensical. I think that this.
I mean, you would agree that a biological woman or sorry, a biological female is a real physical, tangible thing.
That she is real.
Hold on, no, yeah, but we can say it just in terms of like the material. Like you would agree. I would say this for man too. I'm not being sexist now. I'll be sexist later. I've got no problem being sexist, but I'm not being sexist now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that like when we're talking about like in physical reality,
sure,
there is something that is a biological
facts of the matter. Yeah,
and one of the facts of the matter is there are creatures that exist on the planet, and those creatures I refer to as women are these creatures that have 2 X chromosomes, and they got usually not always breasts and all that shit, all the good stuff.
I would say yours is more concrete, but yours is also less accessible. Do you agree with that? Do you concede that?
Hold on. Depending on how you mean by accessible, because accessible,
it's
the
very
vast majority
difficult.
of the world agrees with me, so I think it's more accessible.
Hold on. There's a distinction here, and I think this is really. It's
important. Less accessible in terms of identification.
There's an important distinction between how we think and how we think we think. You are asserting how we think, which is we think that pretentious me with the philosophy degree. I apologize. There is a way that we believe we engage with the world where we just go.
It's like Rumsfeld.
Is that a
Donald Rumsfeld? Sorry, it's an old fucking political joke. I'm old. I'm sorry.
It's been okay. There's this way that we think we engage with the world where we determine things based off of biological sex. You would be right that most people think they're doing that. But when we look at their actual actions, the way that they participate in society, the way that they refer to other people, I would flatly reject your assertion. I would say they absolutely use facial recognition and cues to determine if they are a man or a woman. And there is tension there. I agree. But I would say that if
No.
we want to assert
Hold-
Occam's razor, it makes sense to use their usage rather than how they think they use things.
No. I think that no. I think they're looking at the They're looking for the biology, and because nobody has like a gene measurement
They're
device,
looking for their
we're
biology.
yes, but because
What
nobody
about
has
in
a
the
gene
what about
measure.
in the
Hold up. Yes, they are. They've always have been. But because there's no gene measuring device that people have on them yet, they're looking at proxies. They're looking at
Okay.
indicators. Like
Before we
so,
even
for
knew biology
example,
existed.
if I'm gonna go get if I'm gonna go get a yes, but they're still before we even knew biology exists. Like they're still looking at something like inherent, right? God made Adam. God made Eve. That's what they
Uh-huh.
were thinking about before biology. They're looking at something inherent, and this is their understanding.
They're
It's
looking at the
not
facts of the
based.
matter that
It's not. Yeah, it's not based on performance. It's based on how God made you, at least before. And now, amongst all the condemned atheists, it's more about how nature made you, the actual biology of it. I think that's fundamentally what society's caring about. But because we can't just like detect that immediately in someone's genes unless we study them, unless we take
Mhm.
some kind of sample, we're looking for proxies that tend to closely approximate. And this is what we do for all taxonomy. When I go to buy a cat,
I agree with you.
like I could accidentally buy a non-cat. I could buy a giant
you could
rat
Lilo
that
and
somebody
Stitch it.
dressed up like a cat. Yeah, exactly like Leo and Stitch. Thank you. It's possible I buy an
Yeah.
alien.
I get it.
It's possible,
And it looks like a
but
dog.
I'm not looking to buy an alien. I
Mhm.
would be upset if I didn't buy if I bought an
Okay,
alien.
I want to.
This is not my
Yep.
purpose. My purpose is to buy the thing that it is, and the thing that it is a cat.
Mhm.
If I may bring in a little recent
It's a masculinity,
topical,
according to the poll.
right, topical issue here. I'm
Mhm.
going to ask you guys a question whether or not this is deceptive. Let me share my screen.
Watch
Guys can look.
screen.
So if you can't, oh, I can't make it bigger, unfortunately. So if you can't see, this is Abdul Al Saeed saying, "Hi, my name is Dr. Abdul Al Saeed. I want to talk to you about why I got into politics and why I'm here to stay." Blah blah blah. Recently was revealed, okay, that the Michigan Democrat Senate candidate Abdul Al Saeed had for years say he's a physician, but there's overwhelming evidence that he's had no experience as a licensed medical professional.
This is a great question.
Is he lying? Is he being deceptive?
I would say yes,
I'd say
and
so.
let me clarify. Let me clarify because
Okay.
it looks like this is a clincher against me, right? Because didn't society just distinguish him as a doctor, or wasn't he sufficiently convinced? Okay, the
They all
example that
believed he
I've
was, yeah.
what
They all believed he was a doctor.
right, but there are different types of deceptions. The example that I'm going to give is there is this type of doctor, okay, where you've got a lab coat and you call yourself Doctor. Wait, so what is he actually?
I think he's
He's
look
not a
at here.
doctor though.
Let's
Just to be
assume
super
he's just a
clear,
dude.
he's just a dude. He wore.
No, I think he has.
He's
He
got a
has
doctorate in
medical
fucking
degree.
arts.
Hold
or
on, he has a
something.
medical degree, so technically he is correct when he says he's a doctor.
No,
but
sure. But he's
Dressing
not a
like this,
physician.
saying you're a doctor, people make assumptions about what you are.
No. Sure.
That is not
Yeah, he's not a
covered
physician.
under.
Sure.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Sure. The way that society largely can we just say he got like his doctorate in arts? Because can we just take that?
Sure. Yeah, I'll roll with it.
Cool. And he just wore a lab coat because it was on.
Just wore a lab coat, pretended to
Great.
be a doctor.
Because I don't know the actual facts of the matter. If those aren't the case,
Yeah, I'm with you.
Great.
It's all good.
Let's just pretend he did that. Okay.
Again, this is topical, so I don't.
No.
I'm
It's
just
a good question.
presenting the
Yeah.
question,
But we
okay?
are going to take the case
I
in which
didn't
he
eat
is being
breakfast this morning. I'm with
completely
you.
dishonest, right? Like that he is. There is in no circumstances should he be raising his hand if they're asking for a doctor on an airplane. Okay.
I'm with
There
you.
is some idea of doctor that's socially constructed, in which we recognize that there's an institutional basis towards it. There is you passed medical school, you work at a hospital. There are some facts of the matter that you were referring to that are expected. Now, what I would say is you could still be deceptive and be a doctor. Like let's say Abdul Al Saeed lied on his admission to medical school, and he never actually got his bachelor's. Okay, but he got into the medical school. He somehow squirmed his way into being a doctor. I would say that person is a doctor and was deceptive. But in this, because he was still recognized by that institution. But in this case, no, he was not or he is deceptive and not a doctor. Does that make sense?
I think I have you on something. I think
Yeah.
I got you when I got you. So
Okay.
I'm just gonna be very upfront with it. So you just said it is deception because society. I think I'm gonna. It might be slightly different words, but this is the gist of what you said.
Sure.
Because society accepts there is still some institutional basis for it.
Yes.
Pretty sure that's very close to what you said.
Yes.
For being a doctor.
Yes.
Do you also agree that society accepts there is some biological basis for it in terms of definition of woman, even if the people believe that the person is a woman?
I don't think that's how people are navigating around the world.
In what area are you talking about? You don't think? Because I'm thinking most Americans reject the idea of like the transgender thing. They just do. Most Americans believe it is biological at birth, and so if we're going to accept society on that, if we're going to accept society when it comes to their belief that doctors need to have some kind of institutional backing, and thus the doctor is lying, or the supposed doctor is lying.
Okay.
If society also accepts that there needs to be some kind of biological
basis,
a
distinction.
Like assert this institutional basis.
Yes.
What's the distinction?
Here's the distinction. Okay. If Abdul El-Sayed, there's a picture of him and he's wearing a lab coat, and he comes out afterward and he's like, "Hey, by the way, I'm not a doctor. Like, I just want to be super clear. I'm not a physician." And that lab coat was just, and like he gives some explanation for why he was wearing a lab coat. He's like, "People keep thinking that I'm a doctor, but I want to be super clear. I'm not." Like, that is not deception. You would agree? Even though he looks like people expected him to be.
Wait, say it one more time.
Let's just say there was some reason he was wearing a lab coat. Okay, he was on set and he was playing a lab coat in a play or something, and then someone took a picture and then added a little thing. "I'm Dr. Abdul Saeed," and he's like, "Hey, just to be clear," and he says this on all of his videos. He says it to everyone he knows, and he makes a post about this. He's like, "Hey, I'm not a physician, and I think that some people might think I'm a physician, but I'm not one." Okay, that's not deception, right?
Deceptive.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Don't trans people do that when they call themselves trans, when they recognize, they're like, "Hey, I'm a trans, by the way"? That it's not deceptive just because. Wait, hold on. It's not.
No. You're hold on.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about deception, I'm talking about something that is morally like an action that's morally condemnable.
Sure.
I think that a trans person is just wrong. I don't think they're morally condemnable if they're upfront about it and like they're just like giving what I would believe to be a wrong opinion.
Okay.
People can have wrong opinions and not necessarily be doing something morally condemnable as long as they're being transparent about it.
I mean, I would definitely disagree with the moral, but yeah.
Well, I understand. Well, hold on. I don't think you.
No. Sorry, I would disagree with your ontology that they're wrong.
Like, you disagree that I think that they're wrong.
Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, I would obviously they're not morally condemnable.
But when it comes to the doctor, so even if in this case he's lying. But you would say he's not a doctor, even if most people saw him on TV as a doctor, and even if let's say he came out with a correction afterwards and most people didn't see it. I don't think he's being deceptive. Most people are still wrong, and most people believe him to be a doctor. And they're wrong about him being a doctor because they have this belief that a doctor requires some kind of institutional basis, which I agree with. I also think that if you see somebody and you think they're a woman, and society, if anybody in society were to see somebody and think they're a woman, they could be wrong because the society does believe in a biological basis for a woman.
Yeah,
and
you do assert that quite a bit.
This is on polls.
Okay, let me read a couple things. Quantum Fantasy member for 19 months. Thank you for tier 1 membership. Says, "Say you're a woman in a super chat, and Wick will too."
True.
Hedonic Samuel for $5 more. Thank you, brother. Says, "Let's all take a moment to pray for Grassroots Hegemon. Also, it's Adam and Steve." Thank you for the $5. What happened to Grassroots Hegemon? Is he okay? Like, is that?
I don't even know who that is.
Oh,
I know who Grassroots Hegemon.
No, I think I know. If I'm mistaken on this, I very deeply apologize. But I was listening to Connor. I'm pretty sure he is in some kind of treatment, some kind of
I'm so sorry.
Rehab stuff.
Connor is in Counterpoints?
Yeah, I've seen him on my channel.
Or a different
Connor is in Counterpoints.
I hope
Counterpoints isn't okay?
No.
Counterpoint. It's a chatter guy. Grassroots Hegemon is a chatter guy who's been on the He's chatted on the show. I don't think he's ever appeared, but he's been in the chat and I've seen him and I know who he is.
Uh-huh.
Um,
But
I'm
Connor's
sad to hear that he's going through it. I hope he gets better.
Connor is not going into rehab as far as I know,
why are we talking about Connor?
because he talked about grassroots hegemon, I believe.
Okay,
Oh.
I don't know what the okay. I'm sorry for whoever is going through a hard time. I can't even
Yeah,
follow who
just-
is. I
just-
apologize.
Connor's going through a hard time too, but for other reasons.
Gotcha.
Why is Connor going through a hard time?
Have you not
Oh, is
heard?
that a
Rick?
joke?
Oh no, it's open news. There's no secret. Connor's divorced.
Oh.
I did not know that either. I'm learning so much today. Well, I don't know whether to congratulate him or console him. Honestly, it depends how he feels.
He's handling it
True.
well, but it's obviously a sad thing.
Okay.
Okay, fair enough. Wow, now I'm sad. Like that's really rough.
It is sad. Yeah.
I did not know that.
I
I'm
reached
sorry.
out to them and I said, sorry, brother. I mean, it sucks to go through. I hope
Yeah.
he's doing okay.
Hold on. Polygraph says Wick, he is a right winger. What the fuck does it have to do
Yeah, that's
with
pretty fucked.
anything about what we're talking? Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt the thing, but that was just such a weird fucking comment.
Transgender high school student and a
Are you
female classmate
playing?
after the school board.
Oh, never mind. Sorry.
No, this isn't chat. Polygraph lie
yeah.
detector, right? There's
Yeah,
a
guy
guy in
crazy.
chat. He said it out. Like,
Yeah,
what
but he's a
does that
right
have
winger,
to
so
do?
I hope he dies of cancer.
Like, what are we talking about here? He's a right winger. What does it have anything to do with whether or not we should console, congratulate, how we should feel about someone who's going through a rough time?
Well, we could probably assert that what this person means is that because he is a right winger, he is not deserving of sympathy.
I don't know. That's a disgusting comment.
I agree.
You're a disgusting person, and
That shit sucks, bro.
yeah. Anyway, sorry about that.
I said
but
this is a
now,
pretty
now I want to
prominent
kind of end
left-winger.
the stream.
I
So
hear
we're
ya.
gonna get to closing statements, and because we've gone a little over time, and I'll give you a chance to have your last words. Tell people where you can find you. I have a link to each of these lovely individuals' descriptions in my YouTube channel, right, where you can go and find them and give them a sub, give them a follow, whatever you need. Tomorrow, we're gonna have the soy pill. We're gonna have Dev. He has confirmed. We're gonna have Ice Beams. We're gonna have Tally. And I think there's one more. I forget who. I'd have to check. Anyway, we're gonna talk populism tomorrow. What is it? Why should it matter, right? Is populism something we should use? Is populism something we should fight against? When should we use it? How should we use it? When should we not? It's going to be a discussion more than a debate specifically, but I'm sure there'll be disagreements as we go. Tune in for that. It's tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. But for now, closings to these lovely individuals. Go ahead. First to Hunter, then to Lactoid. Hunter, go ahead.
Cool. I don't know if I have anything necessarily new to say. I'm going over my notes, and I think I said almost everything. One of my big prescriptions that I have is don't be a dick. That's really, at the end of the day, I think you should learn how, language and categories work, but, that's always just kind of fun to do. If you see someone who you don't think is, if you see someone who looks like a man going in a woman's bathroom, probably berating them and screaming at them is probably not going to lead to a more functional society and high trust society. And that's really what I care about. So I want to make sure that we all have liberal values and are able to interact with each other in a cohesive manner. And I do think that, I don't know, don't be a dick. I think that's it. I'm Hunter E. Kozak. You can find me pretty much anywhere, but I'm mostly on TikTok and Twitter.
Check them out, gang. Thank you for coming. I do appreciate you. And I hope you enjoyed the moderation, enjoyed the discussion. Let's
did.
give it to Lactoid. Go ahead. Oh, we can't hear you, Lactoid.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. In my intro, I talked about how the definition I presented, which I'm still sticking to, is adult biological female person, specifically defined as a individual member of the species Homo sapiens sapiens, with the absence of a Y chromosome as a sex chromosome, such as XX chromosomes, as their sex chromosomes, as opposed to XY most commonly. I think this definition has the fewest contradictions. I do think it's the most globally accepted, and it's even the most accepted, I think, in America, and it provides the most utility, I think, in terms of social interaction and also really a lot of the purposes of sex distinction. There was obviously a lot said, but and I hope I'm not strawmanning here. The definition that Hunter presented was, somebody who exhibits feminine traits or a sufficient level of that feminine traits. As I said before, I think that this is much. It's not conducive to the purposes I feel of effective language. I think it's far more subjective as to what feminine traits are. I think this definition is much less accepted by the plurality of society. It's going to be much more difficult to work with. It's far more nebulous and arbitrary. Maybe not arbitrary, but definitely nebulous. It's far less useful in terms of important societal structures like medical designation, sexual interactions, prisons and prison safety. That's not something we talked about. I mean, there's currently people who are impregnating people in prison. I think that that's a problem. Women's sports. I mean, that's something that's been being pushed back on a lot. I think that's that whole situation was wild. Spas and waxing clinics. You're seeing lawsuits like that happening in Canada, and you're seeing a lot of this kind of social structures. I think that I do think provide social utility, attempting to be eroded really for the benefit of a very small, very radical portion of our society. And this is the meanest I'm going to be, but it's just true. A dramatically disproportionately mentally ill portion of our society in terms of I think some studies put the upper rates of personality disorders as up to upwards of 80%, 40 to 80%, which is dramatically higher than the general population. Narcissistic personality disorder, borderline, etc. Significantly higher rates of autism. The Swedish government, for example, has recognized autism as I think a covariate or some kind of contributing factor when it comes to trans treatment. I mean, this is being recognized by governments, and I don't know. I think that the linguistic benefits of having this definition of woman is better, and I think it makes more sense. And I think there's a reason why we have always had this. I also want to thank everybody here for being super cool, and I want to echo one thing that Hunter said, which is I'm not a big fan of hate politics. You heard them just say, hey, just because somebody's a right winger doesn't mean that you should dehumanize them. That's something that's happening a lot. I couldn't agree more. Obviously, not only for selfish reasons, but also I think political polarization and bullying and demonization is really bad, and I would apply that to transgendered people as well. Don't be a dick. I agree with that. Don't be mean. Don't bully people. I mean, the way to deal with this, even if you disagree with them or not, the way to deal with this is not by attacking somebody or making them feel awful and genuinely trying to hurt. Try to avoid doing that. Obviously, you make your points and stand by your principles, but do so in the nicest way that you can.
Okay. Thank you for being here. I appreciate both of you. And remember, gang, tune in tomorrow. Are either of you still going to be streaming after this?
No,
I got work to do.
I'm calling.
Okay.
it.
In that case, I'll just end the stream. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow for some slopulism, boys and girls. It'll be fun.
yeah.
It'll be great. It'll be awesome. And yeah, and I just want to reiterate, I disagree with counterpoints on the ICE stuff and a few other things, right? He's still someone deserving of sympathy and empathy, like almost everyone on Earth.
Yeah, he's no Gibbs. Okay.
Even Gibbs deserves sympathy.
I'm joking. Me and Gibbs are chill.
Right,
I use that example because we're friends, maybe.
I worry that we have more and more a lot of people thinking, well, this group does a bad thing, so we can do it too. And when it comes to empathy specifically, right? Like the excuse that is being thrown around in my chat is like, well, Republicans dehumanize people all the time. Yeah, that's why I'm not a Republican. I agree with you. They do. That's why we shouldn't do it. Or that doesn't mean we should do it because they do it too. And the fact that you act like a Republican, I mean, I guess let's hope people hold you to a different standard than you hold others to. I'll just say that. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.